Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Wagwan.
Wagwan. Happy the 1st of June. June. Wow.
June. What's happened there?
Is it me or does it look like Rodders has just got up? Is it just me? Because we all look fresh.
Oh, yeah, you look so fresh, mate. Yeah.
He's been sleeping in the van. Welcome back, mate.
Welcome back, Rodders. Oh, I should have had the John Wright mug. I messed up there. There you go, see?
There you go.
Shout out to the old git. I think our John Wright mug went home because Ange was worried it would end up getting broken at work. So I think we got ours at home. There you go.
There you go. Yeah. Well, cheers for coming on anyway, Jaffa.
Right.
Don't think you need really much of an introduction.
About time.
About time, yeah.
What's up called it?
I know, yeah.
Peer pressure, finally. There's no agenda. We're just literally going to talk reefing old and new and what's been going on in our tanks. And obviously you guys watching at home will want to know what you're up to.
There is something that is quite important that I've got to start off.
Here we go.
And it's for Ian. Did you see Spurs win the Europa League, Ian? Did you see that?
Yeah, mate.
You see that?
Yeah.
Happy
How many
for
times won the Champions League? Sorry. Oh, sorry. So it's gone quiet over there. I thought so.
Anyway, Paul, cheers for coming on. Genuinely, thanks for coming on, giving up a couple of hours on your Sunday morning. Yeah. Appreciate it. No, you're busy.
Thanks for having us on.
No, you're fine, mate. You're fine. So we'll dive into those 40 odd of you that have joined us so far this morning and say good morning. Paul's going to be the registrar. Here we go. If you don't mind, Paul.
Yeah. Morning, John.
John boy, hope you're good.
Morning, John. CNC Reefs, good morning.
I love that avatar. What fish is that? Is it a trigger? Some kind?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. It's a big one.
It is. What else we got in here?
Hello, Ron.
Ron.
Ronald.
He's been busy this week with live streams, crikey. He's been on TV more than anybody else, I think, this week in my house. What else we got in here? Critical
Reef, good morning. John B.
Morning,
Johnny boy.
Hi, Matt.
Matt, well done for winning the Ocean Sea Wave as well on Friday night. Amazing giveaway that on Friday. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how you get on with that. What else we got in here?
I can never say that.
It's backwards. It's Melinda.
Melinda. Right, good morning, Melinda.
She's from Australia.
Fit as fuck.
Drip is Mrs.
Fit as fuck. Ah. I seem to remember an episode of yes, I think I remember, yes.
You can't forget.
Yeah, I do remember some of the comments that he made on a previous Reefers Network stream. Couldn't help myself. Yeah, I remember.
What else we got in here?
Gaz's Reef, good morning, Gazza.
Morning, Gaz.
Dave's Reef, morning.
Morning.
Steve, I need to talk to Steve. Oh, you're in trouble, Steve. I need a new wedge for my flow cannon. He'll know what I mean. I need to tip my, I put my new Abyss on.
Oh, the JAFFA cannon.
I saw that yesterday, and I thought you'd put a Tunsy wave box on the fucking coral table. It's amazing, isn't it? 1,000 meters slopping to and fro with a full wave noise, and that is fantastic. It's the fucking mangrove box on the top, just floating like that. That's what done me. Yeah. So I need to have a chat with Steve. So,
what else we got in here?
Reefy Reese, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, mate.
Morning,
good. Well done again for winning. He won the hoodie Friday night, I think. Yeah, he did. Won the Friday. Yeah, you were on Friday, were you? I forgot. Right. Mo's in the house.
Hello, Mo.
He won a Reefy AF hoodie. Jamie kindly said that he was going to buy 2 and donate 1 to the winner for the first round of prizes. And then, Matt won Seawave.
Got any AAC hoodies to give out today, Paul? I don't think we have at the moment. I think Connor's about to use ChatGPT to design new attire for the AAC team and also some T-shirts and things. I think that came out of America. It's time for us to do some. Yeah. Well, do some nice. I don't know if you've noticed, but this
give us a twirl.
The Reeferpalooza merch, right? It's got a humongous fucking design on the back, right? Yeah. It's all, sometimes when you go to these things, They have T-shirts. You look at it and you go, they're the cheapest shit, nastiest fucking. You wash it once, right, and it'll.
Like
my Coral Freaks ones. This is all like. Well, I mean, I haven't worn that yet, but all the Reefer Palooza gear, the hoodies and everything, it's all champion stuff. I know it's all good quality. Yeah, this stuff is well nice. On that, I bought 2 hoodies from Reefer Palooza, and one of them is too small. So it's either off the top of my head, I can either think of Baby Dave or Matt's missus, whether a woman would want it. It's a medium, which is a small in England.
So too big for Baby Dave, that I think.
Yeah, anyway. Baby Dave.
Morning, Alan.
Good morning, Alan.
Our skimmer's working well, by the way, Al.
What's that? Royal exclusive?
Yeah, mate.
Just quickly, Alan, have you heard back from Chubby Brown yet, whether he's coming on the Reefers Network or not? Thank you.
Just for anybody that doesn't know this joke, so this is true.
This is true, yeah.
That Alan's wife is the warm-up act for Roy Chubby Brown and a long-term friend. So yes, I want to get him on. Oh my god! And I'm feeling he'll just keep going until he does.
Oh mate, I love him. Grown up on him, love him.
Right. Come on,
you lose all your PC. Morning, Bristol Reefer. Harry.
Morning, Hal.
Morning, mate.
Morning, Harry Bow.
Here she is. Making sure. She's just been to Pilates, Drippy, just so you know. Yeah, send us a photo, Ange. My little flangipus. What a darling.
Oh, dear.
What a darling. Hi, Nick. Stacey. Chris. Morning, Chris. Dan's Reef. Hi there.
Morning.
Morning,
Mr. Foxy.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
Morning, Joe.
Morning, Joe.
Morning, Joe.
The piss head. Hello, mate.
Morning. Have I missed anybody here?
Rob. Here he is. Rob. Sylvester Reef. Good morning. Great avatar. Michael Kenny.
Hey,
Michael.
What a jammy prick he is. Winning the vouchers at the show.
Yeah.
He won 2 lots as well, didn't he?
Hi, Scott. I don't know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Jamie. Morning, Jay. Morning, Tommy.
Morning, Tom.
Hi, Ellie.
It's your daughter, my eldest.
No, it's your daughter. Yeah. She's like, I'm just checking if you really are this sad, Dad. Hi, Ben.
Right, there we go. So thanks for the 50 odd of you that have joined. Please give us a like, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please give us a thumbs up and a sub. Would be appreciated. So what's been happening then? Anything to report?
Busy return, just like you two. Got straight back from America, fell straight in. And it was literally like, it felt like after Love to Reef and after Chad leaving, that I just had like a 3 to 4 weeks straight. It was mental for 4 weeks, absolutely exhausted. I know it took you two a few days recovery or more, didn't it?
Yeah.
But we were just stressed. Me and Ange was just so pleased when we got to the end. Obviously, it was really lovely having Chad with us. But then, obviously, once he went, then we got some free time finally. But yeah, just really, really busy. And then the shop's been, last couple of weekends has been really busy as well. So yeah, just mad busy. Some new products out, which are quite interesting, and some old ones as well. Managed to do. I mean, you remember Cellcon?
No.
Do you remember Cellcon, the vitamins that you add to your fish food years ago? Little bottles on the clownfish diet. Yeah, Cellcon. There'll be people in the chat that know what Cellcon is. But it's a additive that it came out of aquaculture with clownfish breeding, and I've always known it was really good, but it was always difficult to get here. It's easy to get in America, of course, but very difficult to get here. So we've just done a bit of a deal on that. We managed to lower the price on that as well. And I don't know if you saw it, new Royal exclusive skimmer out as well in the last 7 days, like a tiny one. I think we're all all our tanks are generally getting smaller, aren't they? But they're all still high quality. Yeah, so I think there is room for a Royal Exclusive have always concentrated on the 500 or 600 litre mark upwards, but they've now brought out a skimmer around about 100 to 300 litres with a degassing chamber on it. So when you might have had this, Tom, when you set up that NIOS, for example, when you put a new skimmer in it.
Talk to me about that NIOS.
Why was it over foaming all the time?
It's if I'd got the money to replace that NIOS skimmer now, I would replace it straight away.
Well, maybe with the new NIOS that's coming out. But no, what I like about it is on small tanks, often if you've got a skimmer that's misbehaving, it spews all that air out, doesn't it, into your sump, and then you're pumping in fine bubbles, which, if you've got deep water fish in it, like amphias and things like that, you shouldn't have stray air bubbles in your system, because that can cause embolisms in your fish and all of that. So to see a small skimmer come out with a proper degassing chamber on it, I think is a sensible thing. I'm yet to test it, so I can't, it's early days, but I'll probably put one on test soon. But that, as I said, I think, that was 2 products that have come into the shop on that are pretty good since. What was that? Ron just say.
Yeah, Ron was saying he soaks his pellets every day.
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I know. I don't know if you saw it, but the Yorkshire Reef yellow tang that had all these blotches on it and reddish-looking blotches. It wasn't head and lateral line erosion, but all done was soaked his nori with a little bit of Selcon. And that tang, with 7 days, no changes to chemistry and no changes elsewhere, was looking right as rain. It is one of those products that we don't tend to find in the hobby, but amongst aquaculture, particularly with fish breeding, it's really, really common. So, obviously TDO is the most used pellet in aquaculture, but the Selcon will enrich. You've all used Vitalis flakes, yeah? You know how good the Vitalis flake is.
Yeah.
If you know what colour that is, that's a pinky orange colour, and that's showing. And I know the guys at Vitalis. Yeah, that's it. They use all natural ingredients go into that product. Well, the clownfish diet that Mark Wilson for Vitalis originally done is what you're now using as Vitalis fish flakes. That was when TMC had their hatchery. That's where it's all first developed from, the Vitalis sort of formula, if you know what I mean. Well, Selcon is similar in the sense that it contains all of the right stuff for aquaculture, for enriching food products. It's a little something. It's nothing. Don't get me wrong. It's an old product, but it's one of those that's really we should all be looking at using it and enriching our. Particularly if you've got fish that are only taking frozen food. Yeah, because seeing a pellet or flake, you've got a complete diet with all the vitamins and all the right minerals. If you're only using brine shrimp, because you've got a fish, say a Tucaranthia, for example, that's not adapt to dry food, say. Yeah, so at least you can enrich a lot of the food products. And as Ron just said there are lots of reports of people using Selcon and curing head and lateral line erosion with it. So it's nothing new, but we worked with the guys over in America, and we're now able to sell that the cheapest price it's ever been in the UK. And hopefully on the next lot we get as well, we might even be able to bring the cost down again. So it's gone from like a £30 product on Amazon with postage, and we've now got it down to 20 quid. So it's, I'm trying to get it as cheap as you can. But, of course, that depends on currency and freight and sorts of things, Yeah, so, that was 2 new things. But, just mad busy. It's just never seems to slow down. But I suppose, just this week, it's sort of chilled a little bit with the kids being off school and what have you. So, yeah.
I couldn't believe the other night that you said that you sell more Royal Exclusive skimmers than any other skimmer. Was that right? Was that the right?
I've made a rod for my own back over the years, because had we have been in a more generic store, right, say where we do all of it, sort of tropicals, cold water and marines and what have you, we might. And also, if I was garden centre based, right? We may well have sold, how can I put it, a range of products, but over the years, where we've been so specialised or so specialist, that's the sort we've ended up in a marketplace where people are looking to us for really premium kit.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing the TMC skimmers like I'd like to, or the bubble magus that we used to do. It seems that
yeah, I've just felt Ron just collapse.
I think just fell off the chair.
What's that? What?
TMC skimmers, really?
Well, the reason what I mean by that is that we're not catering for the beginner reefer. We get beginners all the time, but usually they've already been online and bought whatever it is. But later on down the line, we seem to be, well, and it really is, Tom. Now we're just doing more Royal exclusive skimmers. I think there's a couple of reasons. Most people realise, I know Ian's had loads of Royal exclusive skimmers over the years, but the other thing is second-hand, Ian. A Royal exclusive skimmer is still worth something, isn't it? It's a good residual value. It's like buying Mercedes or buying Audis, or know that when you go to resell them, say you're upgrade, if you're in this hobby for a long time, you know as well as I do that what you've bought today probably won't fit your next system, or it might be. So I think people buy premium goods like this these days for a couple of reasons. One, probably because they trust the brand, but secondly, it's more to do with the residual value. You get nothing back, do you, on a J-Cod, but you will get something back on a Deltec E-Flow or so it's about buying. If you're going to be in it for years, for me, it's about buying sensibly.
I wonder, Paul, also, or I'd like to think that it might be a sign that the community within the hobby, in terms of the forums, the live streams, people actually chatting to people in shops that they don't even know, have never met before, might be advising from their past experiences or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there is a lot of wasted money. So, everyone. So when you start out, obviously, I mean, I'm going to be doing. I'll talk about it in a little while. I'm going to be doing a new tank, which basically I'm going to build absolutely on the cheap, but to have the same standard to keep a good reef tank. I'm going back to basics. I've sampled a lot. I'll talk about that in a while. But I think when you buy kit these days, when you're passing your hard-earned cash over across the counter, what you got to think is that how much will the residual value be as well? It's not really all what, so if you can afford to squeeze yourself, say, an extra £100 on a light or an extra £50 on a skimmer or whatever it is, buying sensibly means that you'll have a residual value, which means that should you upgrade in the future, your mate will probably give you, something reasonable for it money-wise. And there's a good point there. I just saw that there from Steve, just saying about, we'll go back to that. So the reality is that TMC, that's them. I mean, Brian will always say, he's not trying to go for like the Royal exclusive market. He's not trying to go for eco-tech lights. He's not, Brian's trying to cater for those people that, are on a limited budget. Yeah. But like I said, with anything like that, if you buy cheap, it's not going to be worth anything in the future.
Exactly the same.
Yeah. I wonder if Steve's going to announce his new sponsorship with TMC next Wednesday on his. To
be fair, that was the message that was sort of throughout the event at the Reef Summit that I was invited to the other week. It was all about trying to encourage people into the hobby.
Yeah, and that's the problem. So for AAC, we help beginners all the time, but often we get them when they're having a disaster. They've already bought it all. They've been looking online. They may have bumped into someone on Facebook or something like that that said, well, why don't you go to this shop and, hopefully get some good advice. But of course, we often inherit really, it's not really any failing of the equipment as such. It's more just to do with like they're having teething troubles, like most people do.
Paul, do you remember one of the first times I ever spoke to you was when I had that shit gunk in my skimmer cup? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, that was just phenomenal, wasn't it? That time, I remember how desperate you was and how manic you was back then as well.
Yeah. Clearly, was that the same time that you asked me about your return pump?
No.
No, the one that you'd never cleaned in 2 years.
No, it wasn't 2 years. It was about 21 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the market's very different for us, perhaps than it would be for a store that would be in a garden centre based business. So I'll probably talk to. Probably don't get the beginners quit early doors in order to give them the option. Do they want to buy cheap or do they want to buy something they're going to have and hopefully resell it? But that's the reality.
Question, though. I suppose when you ask somebody, how long do you plan to be in this hobby for? Because nobody knows, do they? When they start.
No, they don't. But particularly beginners don't. But if I was talking to any one of you guys, say for example, and you said to me, "Paul, I'm thinking about a new skimmer," I mean, you're already answering your own. You three here understand that if you make a purchase, say for example, on a Vectra, which is quite an expensive return pump, say, yeah,
Not a Red Dragon.
Or yeah, well, yes, another.
Blue Red Dragons.
Yeah, but if you buy a Vectra, what we do know is that you're going to get superb service and support with it, right? Yeah, and I think that also comes into it. There we go, Tom. Yeah, can we give a shout to this? Yeah, exactly. Definitely. I mean, this is the thing. They, so sometimes when you're making purchases as well, you especially on high-end equipment is what sort of spares and service. And looking at the Strattons hanging behind yours and Ian tanks there. So I've known about the Stratton for years. It's not a new thing. Right. But the only reason I never supported it before was because I couldn't guarantee the customers that we would ever get the spares and service and that we needed previously. But now, of course, we've got good UK distribution. Yeah, then it's worth, spending that bit more maybe and getting that good light. But spares and service also comes into people's purchasing, I think, as well. So
you don't think about it when it's going to go wrong.
Yeah,
because eventually it does.
Yeah,
Just from experience, it makes all the difference.
It's pretty much a review for every product on YouTube as well. Let's be honest. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there can be reviews, Drippy, but there'd be behind the scenes in the trade. There'll always be reviews on there, but reviews themselves, I don't believe you shouldn't base your purchasing decision just purely on reviews.
They are very misconstrued sometimes and very
biased as well at times.
Yeah. It really needs to be, for me. So for I make no bones about it. If a supplier doesn't perform to the standard that I would expect them to perform to, I get rid of them. So GHL is no longer AAC, for example, anymore. Not because I don't believe that the products are well built. They are extremely well built products, but I had a situation develop with a well-known reefer that me and Ian share friends with, and he was having terrible trouble with his products. They wanted him to send back post-Brexit products straight back to Germany, which meant filling out customs forms and all sorts of nonsense and all that. I tried bringing them 7 times to try and resolve the issue for the customer, and there was previous situations as well. And I got no response. The next day, I needed to process an order for £9,000 at trade of GHL product for Edinburgh University. And it's funny because they answered that email in about 5 seconds. Yeah, so cool. I'm not here to slag GHL off, but ultimately, if they do watch it, good luck, because they lost around about, 50 to 80 grand's worth of business a year from us because of that. So sometimes spending more doesn't necessarily mean, or buying what you believe to be high quality.
My experience with those pumps was horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, if that was ever, I think, as I said to you at the time, if you do buy a Euro-based product, you should buy it ideally off of I think you did, but you should buy it off. If you buy it off of a UK seller,
I did.
That responsibility lies with that retailer. So, you, as much as RMA systems and support tickets and all the rest of it, probably from a customer service thing that might interest some of the people watching, the reality is that if you buy it off of a UK seller, whoever it is, your first port of call is with your retailer. And you don't actually have to use RMA if you don't want to, right? But your retailer should at least help you through that process if you're asked to fill out. So, say, for example, Neptune RMA was something I was involved with on the returns and stuff. If you ever have a faulty product, you should really, you contact your retailer, let them know, and if need be, we'll always write the RMA with the customer so that way we can help them. You know, so sometimes spending good money on stuff doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting the best. So, you know, I would say that you know, it's about after sales for me, you know, because we all know that reefing kit is going to fail. Yeah, it's going to fail. At some stage, it's going to.
It all does. It's just a matter of when.
It's just a matter of when, you know. And so I think that's an important consideration is to always make sure that you get spares and support before you do, say, perhaps buy some as expensive as a Stratton or as a Royal Exclusive.
That's why I run 2 return pumps, and Sod's Law, they both failed within 3 months.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that ever.
Yeah, but it was that thing to him.
It was funny though, Tom.
Oh, yeah, it was hilarious.
It was at the time. He was pulling his hair out, poor sod.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah. Anyway, Ian, what's happening behind you? What's happening?
Not a lot, mate. Not a lot. Corals are growing,
Right.
Last 2 ICPs, silicate still off the scale.
Let's put you on big screen. Let's have a look at it.
I thought you'd got this under control, Rodders, a couple of months ago. Or
No. For about a week, and then off the scale again, mate. So I'm going to rip all the ceramics out this week.
Ian, before you go mad at doing that, just
I'm done with it, Paul.
So you're reading,
mate, trust me,
you're reading silicon off of you're not reading silicate, are you? You're reading silicon from your ICP, am I right? Yeah.
Off the scale.
So yeah, it may well be, mate, but that does. If you've got coral, so for example, obviously you know some of it's organically available and some of it's inorganically available. Yeah,
even on the end dock as well.
Oh yeah. So can you understand an end dock then?
Well, I've got Vince to explain it to me.
Yeah, I never could understand them, to be honest with you. But sometimes I've had, because I had massive silicates in the display tank for years. Yeah, and it had no bearing on coral growth whatsoever. You know, if you have got, are you seeing problems with diatoms and stuff like that?
Yeah, and also colours with the corals when all the other levels are completely stable and well within reading.
What do you mean, they're brown?
Yeah, everything's just brown, mate. Just cannot get it to colour. I mean, there's a few things that are colouring, but Paul, you know me. I know. Just by looking at the tank, I know whether it's healthy or not. And it's
live rock. This is one of the things to say. You had your experience with live rocks in the past, and of course that you have to take the rough with the smooth with the clove polish. God knows what else. But ultimately, I think so many systems are failing because of dead aquascapes. Yeah, or not to say that they won't come good. They will come good eventually.
Listen, I know that will happen, but I'm at the point where I'm so impatient and so done with it, mate. I've done nearly 10 kilos of rower since October last year.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah.
I was telling Ian Drippy what it was like when I had my display tank downstairs and how many times I used to be on the phone to you and I'd scrubbed it all off with a toothbrush. It's a 9.5 foot tank, and by the time I got to the other end, they started reattaching themselves and showing the faces.
It's unbelievable, mate. It's unbelievable.
I honestly think if you're not enjoying it, mate, do what you know. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, I'm just going to go back to live rock and start again. I'm going to keep all the water, obviously keep all the corals, rip the ceramics out. I mean, they would probably come good, but it's going to be a year for them to get the full maturity before they're actually usable.
It probably took my display a year.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom, yours was running just rock and water for how long?
A long time. Yeah,
mine wasn't. I started mine and pretty much put softies in within 4 or 5 weeks, didn't I?
So question, Ian, have you got any advice to any new reefers thinking of using dry rock or man-made scapes for their?
The thing is, it's when it's mature, fully mature, it's brilliant, but it just takes so long. And it's not like you can go into a shop and they've got it soaking and it's pre-cured, you know, that process for it to become fully biological, you're talking 12 months.
Oh dear, I'm not that bad. Ian's worse than me.
Yeah,
Oh,
mate,
yeah.
I'm the most impatient reefer ever.
Oh, I don't know.
I will tell you, how many times have I ripped the tanks out, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. I've known you to do tank strip downs, rebuilds, re-gun a whole new tank and put it all back in a week, that sort of thing. I remember that years ago. But yeah, live rock. So, you know, I'm going to set a new tank up soon. And
so when you said you was enjoying a bit of downtime now after the last hectic month, you're now starting up a new system at home.
Well, it's the reason being is because Ange has claimed 50% of my man cave.
Good girl.
So
with what? With what?
With a bar. It's called Flange's Bar. It's currently.
Oh, mate, I'm coming round, mate.
My builder's been round there this past week preparing all the walls. So we've moved all. Obviously, the seahorses have moved out of home. So now we're currently building. So I'm doing a new tank in here, but I'm so cheesed off with sumps and complexity and I thought, what it's a great time now for me to show people that all you really need to do is go on eBay, buy a second-hand glass tank. Don't care whether it's drilled, not drilled. It's an old Joel, it's an old Tropical. What could you do with that? So years ago, when I had no money, we still had live rock and circulation, and it was never ever a ball ache to set a reef tank up because we had great media. And a bit like, you know, live rock. And it's a bit like gardening. You've got to have great soil to have a great garden. Well, you've literally got to have a great foundation for a reef tank. But of course, the trouble is live rock now is so expensive. Yeah. And it's in a very limited amount as well. So it's not something we can ever all get into, but using certainly a portion of live rock in every system, if you have the ability to do so, even if you put it in the sump, say you don't want to transfer any crabs or problems. Yeah. So the good way to do it, as I've done actually with the farm as well, is that the sumps are live rock in them and it's away from the main display. It obviously doesn't mean that you can't spread algal spores, but I think we've forgotten. So, like, Ian, let me ask you, I bet you've never seen any seriously green algae, have you, on this structure? Is that right, or have you? No. See, where everybody's tanks are suffering because they're not going through what I call these green algae phases. Now, it used to be fundamental that when you were setting up a reef tank, you saw the green algae come, you put your cleanup crew in, and then shortly after that, your tank would be ready and coral ready. You'd know that you had it. If you can grow filamentous and green algae, you can grow zooamphili. Yeah. So, you know, and of course, if you don't see the green algae, or at least the early stages. So I think nowadays that it's not a question of have you bought the best kit, have you bought the best computers, lights and everything. I think the number one thing that's missing, just like it would be if you had a poor garden, is poor soil. Well, often it is a poor substrate. Yeah,
I think a lot of that is when people say you need to give it time and you need to wait, because the time and the patience everybody refers to. No, listen to me. The time and the patience everybody refers to is for that bacteria. Is for that. Is for
14 months. I've worked it out on a dead rock scape because I've done a few tests with Danny Gassman actually in. Right, okay. So Danny set up a tank with me with real reef rock a few years back. And I got him to introduce. At first, it was amazing because, of course, all the test kit results come back amazing. Particularly, this is where beginners can fall down. They've got zero nitrates or hardly any nitrate. They've got hardly any phosphate because nowadays we're spoilt as reefers. We've got really pure rock. We've got nice pure sand. Our reverse osmosis water is way better. So just actually touching on that. There's a little something that I've been encouraging Joe to do on his large installs where we have to use dead rock, right? We've got no choice, but we've got to be able to escape some of these monsters, 2,000 litre tanks. We still include live rock in it, in the sumps and things, but they have to be done like that. I've been telling him when we wet test the tanks for the first time, just to make sure there's no leaks, the pipe works good and all of that, I tell him to leave whatever tap water is there in the weir. I'm telling people now, it don't hurt for you to start off these pure systems with a little drop of tap water or two from where you've wet tested, because they're so saturated in phosphate and nitrate and nutrients that when you top it up with your super pure salt water that you can get nowadays, that everyone DIs their RO water nowadays. We never even had DI, did we?
You said this to me, by the way. You said this to me when I bought this new tank.
Yeah, and it just helps kick off. When was the last time you did a wet test?
About an hour ago.
He's pissed himself twice since he's been sitting there.
Yeah, there's a bottle underneath him.
I was still in bed at the time.
Yeah, so I think foundations are important with a reef tank these days. I think there's so live rock. I'm going to try and increase the capacity at AAC to stop more live rock. So I just have to take, because what happens is a permit comes along and it'll be for like half a ton. And then I've got no room to bring it in, I
think that's what Vince has just done, hasn't he, Paul? Because he's got 950 kilos sitting in the vat at the unit.
Yeah, you just got to buy it when you get the opportunity. So now what I've got to do is have enough room. So at the moment I've got 400 litres worth of Indonesian, roughly, or 500 litres worth of Indonesian. But I've been curing that now and trying to improve the coral line on it. And finally, I'm getting there with it. But I'm trying to see if we can get somewhere close to that Fiji look that we used to get. I mean, nothing was as good as that, really.
I miss the days where you used to get it straight out of the box. Like, it come from CMC, straight out the box, straight into a tank.
Can still do that. No, there is no better way than that. Trouble is, if someone's got a problem and with their little nano reef or something, and you want to sell them a little bit of live rock, because it's a bacterial diversity situation, very much like a lot of these dead rocks. The rocks have got to be cured and nitrite and ammonia free. But for someone like you who wants to rip all the rock out next week, if you can get a fresh box of live rock in there and let it cycle in your own aquarium, that's even better. But not many people get that window of opportunity. I mean, the ideal thing would be that I'd have both. Is that I've got fresh live rocks coming in all the time for people that want to set up from scratch, but I've also got to have cured rock. But there's
a lot of rock, Paul.
No, I don't get loads. I mean, the last lot I got, I think I got about 150 kilo, 120 kilo, around about 6 weeks ago.
Do you not find that crazy? Like, obviously, I've been in the hobby 25 years. I mean, you've been in longer, but do you not think that that's crazy that you don't sell more?
Yes, because I'll tell you the reason why. First of all, is that as retailers realised they could sell dead rocks, this is one of the genuine reasons behind it, right? So retailers didn't have to have wasteful systems like I've got next door. We're filled up with seawater, heated, running, partially lit, and you need space. So I've took up a 2 metre. I've actually got around about 4 or 5 cubic meters dedicated to live rock. Now I want you to imagine that in your average LFS, right? So where would they put it?
Who's got the room?
So basically, retailers saw the dead rock market as a way of almost, I've got more room, I can get out of this live rock world. And also, of course, at the time, we're concerned about the environmental impact as well of live rock, remember? There used to be. There you go. So I helped Foxy with his live rock for his system that he set up. And as you've seen, Foxy's new tank was only running it's only been running, 2 years? And you can see.
I heard a little rumour about him anyway.
Yeah, go on.
Is it true?
An upgrade very soon.
Yeah.
Apparently the wife's on his case.
I thought you meant he's Bubbles.com's #1 customer. That's what I thought you did.
Sorry,
Paul, but Gaz is asking, is fresh and cured different then?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So the term, fresh rock is literally, as Ian's saying, it's basically scooped out of a vat, put in some boxes, covered in a bit of newspaper, or just usually sealed up, and then it comes to the UK, and that would be regarded as a fresh box of rock. But the problems with a fresh box of rock are that when you put it straight into your system, if it's an existing system, it will kill everything. It will kill all your fish. It will wipe out everything. You'll have massive problems and ammonia. So fresh rock is only for someone who understands it. cured live rock is a safer option. Cured, all that means is that I've put it under seawater, and I've already, and basically I've gone through the ammonia and nitrite situation for you, and then I sell it to you once we've carried out, we've made sure that it's safe and there's no ammonia or nitrite being released from it. But there's also a benefit to the fact that at that point, if there's decaying sponges on it, we'll brush it all off. I think a lot of people think that live rock should have corals growing out of it and sponges all over it. But actually, you're only buying live rock for the back stuff you can't see.
The microbiome.
The microbiome.
That does include critters, though, I will say.
Yeah, it does.
Two mantis shrimp in live rock, fresh rock.
Yeah.
Oh, how brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, people I know have even had octopus come out of them, things like that. And
I've got a question. I got some live rock off you about 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's been curing in your systems, right? How come? Because I was expecting, I got talking to whoever I was talking to, and Cyrus bagged it up. He bagged it up for me in a bag that was airtight with no water, right? I initially thought that was going to come in a bag with water to keep it saturated. How? So it doesn't lose anything by coming out of the water and being exposed to air.
It will do to a lesser or certain degree. So anaerobic and aerobic activity. People always used to say with live rocks that they're a little universe. So in the central core, people used to say that's where your anaerobic activity lives, and it sort of does to a certain or less degree. Then on the surface, you've got aerobic activity. So there's the yin and yang, the balance on a piece of live rock. Yeah. However, it's not actually fully true. Is under every surface form of aerobic activity, there will be anaerobic activity living just below it, and the bacteria are living both in harmony with one another, between the two. But when you lift it out alive, just like Cyperax or biomedia, if it has been in a situation for a long time, there is a chance you might lose some of the anaerobic activity the minute it interfaces with higher levels of oxygen. That's the truth of it. Yeah. But it's a short thing. It's a bit like compost activator for your composting. It basically can lay dormant to a lesser or certain degree. So, yes, exposing it to air isn't a good thing long term, but for a short trip back to a tank, it's not an issue at all.
Yeah.
And it's the only way to really ship live rock as well, is you can't ship it in water, unfortunately. Yeah, because of the weight and freight and problems associated with it. But
it takes 3 or 4 days to get it, doesn't it, Paul?
What's that?
It takes 3 or 4 days to get it normally, doesn't it?
It can actually. I mean, I do know that one of the big exporters in Indonesia, I mean, they will be boxing up live rock today. Yeah, and it may sit there for about 7 or 8 days, in its box in the dark, So it's when we get it in the UK, it is on death's door, is the reality. The live rock. But so in other words, all of the macro life that's on it, and some of the macro invertebrates like your nasty crabs and your bristleworms and everything else that lives within it, they will have been dying and decomposing. So that's why you can't really put just fresh bits of live rock, unless you've got a massive tank like you, Tom. You get away with putting a couple of bits in your tank, but it'd still be like you emptying some extra food in for the fish in one day. So you need to be very, very careful. Buying fresh rock straight out of the box is only for the experienced. Cured live rock is the way to go if you've got an existing system. But use your nose. Always smell it. If you're in a dealer, if it smells sulphur or it smells eggy or whatever like that, you can't put that in your tank. It's not
my problem with that, my sense of smell ain't what it was. So
I know your farts are horrendous, mate. Trust me, I spent a week in America. Paul, can I just ask?
For years.
Do you AAC then? Do you have enough live rock for somebody setting up a new tank, or do you limit people to how much they can take?
I have to be truthful. I limit people. If it's a nano and they're a beginner, they'll get there. They usually need it between 5 and 7 kilo. I'll let them have the total display in live rock, because I believe that this is where, unfortunately, we lose people out the hobby. They buy a new nano, they buy some dead rocks, they get all excited. They start stocking it with corals and fish, and then it all goes wrong, and then it probably ends up in the second-hand market. So if we get a nano customer set up, right? Where for the very reasons that Ian's this morning, he's frustrated. He's got all the experience in the world, Ian, but he knows he's being impatient. Is the truth of it.
100%. That is the only way. That's the only reason I'm trying.
Saying I'm impatient, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, for someone on their first journey into the hobby, you want it to be seamless. You want them to have a great experience, and live rock is what brings that to a nano. So that I always yes, they might get a bristleworm, yes, but they're going to learn what we all know now, and I see that as part of the course. You're going to learn about your macro pests and your problems. You've got to. It's like gardening again. I make reference to gardening. You have to learn about slugs and snails. You have to learn about these things, you know. But live rock makes it easy from a biological stable view. If someone, say, with a big tank was coming to us, can we have live rock, Paul? Unfortunately, I would limit that, Sal, because I just can't get enough of it. Yeah,
depending on how fast they want
to turn the money back into the bank. It's more to do with, like, if I give him all that rock now, where's the next lot coming from? How do I help other people? How can I help the nanos? And the reality is, say, a tank like Drippy, if he put 5 kilo or 6 kilo of prop in the sump, right, that's more than enough. And if, for example, with you, Tom, how many kilos you got in that little Niles tank around there? 2, 3 kilo, I'm guessing?
No, I'd say more like 5 or 6. It's absolutely jam-packed.
Yeah.
That came out of a shot. That's the 12 years old, I think. Something like that rock.
Yeah, and how quick as your tank... So let's talk about your little Niles tank there, Tom. Right, so your big display downstairs, 14 to 16 months. I've worked it out to be 14 months that Danny Gassman's tank turned from a dead rock system into what I call a stable system. If you use dead rock, you've got to wait 14 to 16 months really before you start planting SPS corals in it. Is the truth. I pushed it round the corner a bit quicker. I don't know why it took me 12 months to think about it, but I put a load of live rock in the sump of the display tank. I didn't have enough, as in, space for that much, but I do think it kicked it on a little bit quicker. And this Nios tank is what less than 6 months old.
This Nios tank is like just racing away.
Yeah, and as I said, so for me, it's I don't know how we're going to solve the problem as dealers and as importers and all the rest of it. But the only other thing that was really interesting, and I know you sat and spoke to him quite a bit as well, but I was speaking to someone recently. I was speaking to Matt Senai. That's who it was. Matt Senai. I was talking to him now. He's doing biometrics, eDNA testing on rivers and ponds around the UK at the moment, right? And this eDNA thing that Salim was talking about, he probably spoke to you about it. So this is where I think, right, there is a really good future coming. Now imagine this. If I was to get an eDNA test done on my vat of live rock that we know is cured, safe and full of coralline, right, then we should be able to determine what bacterial species are present. And we don't just mean the aerobics and anaerobics. We're talking about all the stuff. Right, yeah, look, 2 years from Rob there. We're talking about all the stuff that we don't know. Because this, as I've said many times in recent times, we don't know it all. None of us know it all. There's not a single person, no matter how good you think you are, that knows it all. And I believe that the eDNA gives us a way better understanding, and it's going to be the next level in our hobby. If we was to get some live rock fresh in Indonesia, for example, and put that in a little glass tank, and then we eDNA test it, we'll be able to tell that there is a bristleworm in that live rock. We can tell that a tuna swam over that live rock in the morning. We can also know what bacterial species, what other pests. As soon as there is DNA, for all of these, but it's a long process. So I do believe in the future we will be able to get live dead rocks as good as live rocks. I do believe it, but it won't come.
They will be able to isolate all of those different things that are in the rock, and then we'll be able to get those maybe in some sort of bottle.
There will be a bottle. It'll probably be a refrigerated dormant bottle because it would have to be
refrigerated syringe or.
Yeah, that's it. Just what exactly that, Ian. You probably buy a syringe that
10 mil filled,
10 mil, and it'll do 1,000 litres. That's all you need. Right, yeah. But there's something, there is, without a shadow of a doubt, there is a lot missing. So the reason why
an adrenaline shot.
The reason why I think that I believe that these tanks take 14 to 16 months to develop from a dead rock situation, is because people have already lost patience and are already planting rocks, say soft corals or stony corals in it, on plugs. And on them plugs, there will be spots of coralline algae. There will be bacteria that has been from a mature system. So I actually believe that, like, a lot of people, the reason why these tanks are turning at 14 to 16 months is not really due to the time it takes to develop the bacteria in that time. It's just that we've started to lose patience at around about 5 or 6 months, but we're still planting corals in it. But it's those corals that are bringing in those bacteria with them too, on their bases and on their stones and all the rest of it. But you know, there used to be an old school reef keepers thing, and maybe the Reefers network being a bit more like clubs like we used to have, and is that we used to share an handful of sand with one another.
Yeah.
The hobbyists used to go around our mate's house, and, you know, when we used to kick a reef tank off, we used to borrow. Now, there's problems with doing this, we'll get onto, but we used to very often, and we used to, even at AAC, I've had customers before say, Paul, is it all right if I have an handful of sand out the display tank? Right. Now, of course, if the sand has been in amongst the live rocks in a tank for a very, very long time, chances are that sand will have the same qualities as a piece of live rock. But I said, it's not just aerobic and anaerobic bacteria we're talking about. It's the ones we don't know about. Probably bug Rob's level. Bug, he'll absolutely, here you go. Look, there we go. Peking Pandora's box, really exactly. But there's problems. So already we know that on a live rock eDNA test that was carried out in America, that of course you find all of the fish disease pathogens and all of that. So we're going to open up Pandora's box, like Rob says, and we're going to learn a lot about what's good. Sharing sand with each other. Now, sharing sand with each other is a good way of bringing bacterial diversity, but it's also a good way of sharing fish diseases everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's to be considered too. So just because I've said something, I mean, there are benefits to doing this, but, you know, but that's why I think we see so many problems with new people starting out. But as I said, 14 to 16 months, I'd say, is about the right time to plant stonies in a retail. If you've got someone with a lot of experience like Ian, he'll push the boundaries and all that. But I would.
I'm getting things to grow, Paul. But that's only because I'm having to use so much media. I mean, Steve Fox will tell you how much media I've been through. Yeah.
Do you know why, Ian? Silicon drags out ferric iron oxide faster than phosphate does.
Well, I didn't know this, but apparently Roa and all of these ferric oxide based medias absorb silicates before they absorb phosphate, and then they become bound. So their phosphate absorbing capacity is reduced, say, by 80 to 90%. So it's.
I was telling you to be patient.
Now Mo's telling you. Now Mo's telling you as well. Be patient.
Mo, won't you, good mate?
Mo, I haven't got another 7 months, mate. I'd have ripped it out and put a bigger tank in by then.
Bioactive salt, he said.
Yeah.
I know.
I think GFO strips too much
out. It does. It does strip too much.
Well, you're talking about how much GFO you're using. How often have you been replacing your trace elements and things like that?
Oh, that get put in every day, didn't they? Obviously from the NIOS products.
Have you noticed your dosing of them has gone up?
Not a little bit, but not tons. Not tons. There isn't a ton of corals in there. Like Paul said, I'm literally pushing the boundaries with what I can do, and I'm at that point where I'm just done with it.
I think if you've had live rock in the past, it's really hard. Like if you, I have more trouble with old school reefers. There are a couple of things. One is as an old schooler reefer, the things that you can trip up on is that if you came out the hobby, out of the Fiji days, and you gave it up then, and then you come back to the hobby, and then what you've got is all this like new dead rock and stuff to play with. You think initially at first, oh, that's great because I can aquascape, but you've forgotten how easy it was, And that's where the patience factor is really hard on an old school reefer, because he knows what he's doing. But I think with beginners, it's a little bit easier because you can teach them some level of patience. Yeah. But you can imagine when a customer walks into AAC and they're looking at an invoice for their first little 3-foot tank with all the good gear on it, say that's about 3,000 quid plus. Yeah. And then you got to tell them they've got to wait for 14 months before they can start planting corals. I mean, can you imagine? It's like, so as I said, you have to really sort of wean your customers and new people into the hobby, whatever way it takes for them to have some fun during that period, whether that's with leather toadstool corals and GSP and things like that, and then tell them that there's a natural progression to stony corals. But when we were reading books, we like Foster and Nilsson, Volume 1, he made a point of saying in there that you should not be planting stony corals in your reef aquarium until you see the spots of coralline algae. If you can't deposit coralline algae, you shouldn't be playing around with stony corals.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then I've heard a few things over in America that contradict that. And listen,
I hate coralline algae. No, you're right, Drippy.
Like Jake Adams was a classic. Get him straight in.
Yeah,
and Leonardo who came on in.
Leonardo's Reef, he said the same thing, didn't he?
Yeah, but that depends, of course, on the medium or soil. You could say if you've got great soil, you can fill out a garden in a day. But if
they're obviously incredibly intelligent people who are worldly knowledgeable, and obviously, if they didn't have any live rock in their sumps, etc., would they be launching corals straight in there?
Exactly.
Who knows? Do you know what I mean?
This Nios tank behind me has reminded me, even though I've been in hobby long enough, I should have probably known better. It's reminded me the power of a good quality live rock, because there is no way that would look like it does now.
No, when you've got the evidence downstairs,
exactly. Exactly. Drippy, there was a question earlier in the comments. I'm going to talk about your tank behind you, if you don't mind, for a second. Somebody was asking you how the Masked Angel was getting on.
It's doing really well. You'll probably see it in a minute. Come flying past. Do you know what? Funny, Paul, it's been since Love to Reef and all that's been going on and all the rest of it, I fucking lost me potters.
Oh, you're joking.
Mate, I lost me copper band one day, the yellow long nose the next day, the Potter's Angel the next day. Just vanished.
Any symptoms of disease or not?
No, I had ick on the long nose.
Right.
And the copper band was, and all of them eating like pigs. No unusual behaviour, nothing. The Potter's Angel was just disappeared. I keep going round. I was on this tank all day yesterday, trying to look in and around every crevice, because this is all cured rock that I was lucky enough that when my ex-missus bought that first bundle, and I was like, what the fuck is all that? The two people kept all of this rock you can see behind me in two big black bins with a heater and a power head, right? Yeah. And obviously at the time, listen, I had no idea what it was. It was just rock, so I'm incredibly grateful for that. But yeah, I can't fucking see it. Listen, so much clean-up crew in here, mate. They've probably dined out on it by now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something, Drippy, that so a lot of this will be a controversial one. So, but do you because I know what people will instantly think the minute I say it. But do you run a UV?
I do now.
Yeah. So now we all know that white spot itself isn't killed by UV necessarily. It depends on how you use the UV that really makes a hell of a difference. So, Drippy, when you're going through situations like this, is that it's a sort of one of the things that you probably benefit from is to run the outflow from a UV into mechanical filtration, whether that's filter wall in a cup that you've modified from a margarine tub to a fleece filter to a sock with fine wall in it, right? So basically, if we can time the flow on your UV and get it as lowest setting as you can get away with without compromising the UV, and then pass it through mechanical filtration, what it will do is it won't kill the spots on the fish, obviously, but when it's going through its reproductive stages, it will definitely make a difference. So it's probably might be worthwhile you just double checking that the UV is operating. Now, this isn't going to cure your white spot problem. It will always be there unless you have all the fish out and you go through it. But as Ian will tell you, like, as much as I know loads of people are obviously focusing on the idea of quarantining their fish and, you know, should dealers be doing more? And I see all of this all over the place, right? But the reality is, as Ian, I'm sure, and maybe Tom will tell you, that unless you quarantine absolutely damn everything, and that means your mates' frags that you're all sharing all one another. I bet you, Ian would say, particularly, like, it don't matter what you do, eventually at some stage is an element of luck about a reef aquarium, right? And ultimately you can do all you want, you know, in terms of like making sure that your fish are a good condition and all of that. It's like I explain to people, we put a lot of effort into our fish at AAC, right? But ultimately, every week I have to buy at least 100 to 200 trocker snails in. Yeah. Now, what do I do with them then? Isolate, eat all of them and put them in a separate tank. So chances are that, like, in these facilities abroad, in places like Indo and all that, mum and dad and son are all involved, and daughter are all involved in the ornamental industry, and the kids go out and pick your trocker snails out the rock pools for you, whilst dad's fishing some convict tangs off the reef. And then they all turn up in the shed later on and they dump all that gear all in the same system. Yeah. And inevitably, I've just called an order out in Bali. There's goes Paul's 150 snails and his this and that into a box, and then them snails will come in. And who knows what's on them snails?
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, so there's so many conversations flying around the industry, flying around on hobbyists and things like that. The harsh reality is, this is why the buck stops with the hobbyist, because how on earth would you imagine that all of those mushroom rocks that are coming out of Vietnam this week to me, and all of this coming over from here, and TMC with their 10 destinations landing in the UK this week, and all of that. Disease organisms are part and parcel of what we do as reefers. But unfortunately, if a beginner gets it, well, that was fantastic.
Well, yeah, I spoke to Rob for the last week or so, couple of weeks, and it comes back to a little bit about, you know, the what was it, the eDNA or the EDA testing you was on the right? So in America, they've obviously got aquabiomics, haven't they? Right, so. I spoke to Salem loads about this since I got back, about how much that has changed the hobby over there with not just tanks, but also products that people are releasing, and people are able to do this test on them and find out what the fuck is actually in them, right? And a lot of the time, you know, some things are not absolutely as they read on the label.
That's because so the hobby is the hobby. We're a very small industry. We're way smaller than the model aircraft industry. Give you some sort of perception on it, right? So when we're looking at products being made, you know, how many of these products are actually being made at lab standard? You know, like say your VO5 shampoos made in a lab standard, whatever it is. Yeah, like, and put on the shelves at Boots, guaranteed that it's not going to kill you as a human being or upset your hair, make your hair go funny, right? Whereas,
is that what you're using, Paul, at the minute?
Yeah, exactly. Look what happened. A lot of these reefing products are not made at lab standard. They're made in places like AAC. Yeah, you know, so there is always a chance in these situations. So eDNA is a little bit like AI to some degree. It could be extremely worrying because you could literally ruin someone's business overnight and still not be factual. So I know the same conversations that you've had and have been privy to some of those over the past year or more. And, you know, and I know that products have been opened up and they've found bacteria that shouldn't be in them, right? That's quite serious, quite dangerous.
Yeah.
However, depending on how that product's used is to whether how dangerous it really is. A pint of milk can be dangerous. You
totally get it.
You can get Listerine poisoning off of.
I totally get it. And what I was going to say, this gravel substrate, I hadn't. Listen, mate, I will always be 100% honest because, like you say, if there's someone brand new listening, right, they can learn off an idiot like me, right? So I never gravel vac this substrate for about 2 months, right? And when I was listening to Salem out in America talk about This aquabiomics, not only is it going to tell you what is in your tank, which is lovely, great, I've got that, tick, tick, tick. It's also going to tell you, right, the harmful stuff that is residing in your tank, right? And then obviously, you know, that will also be used for like an ICP method. Whereas if you see a pollutant building up, right, I can do a water change. You know, you can catch things maybe before. So I don't know whether
absolutely every single reef tank, and every single LFS, and every single, we've all got the nasty gear too. Just like on my skin, there will be nasty bacteria and good bacteria living in harmony. Living in harmony. So, for example, one of the tests that was carried out was across 20 LFSs, I believe, in America, and every single LFS had uranema.
Yeah.
Wow.
And no doubt AAC has as well. And no doubt every store in this country has got uranema in it. And there's a very good reason for that, because, you know, you'll never, ever really, it's very unlikely that you're ever going to control an organism like that as much as, you know. So I said a lot of people are living in some sort of fairyland, believing that, you know, well, I only buy my corals from him because blah, 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 blah. And I only do this from him because he's like that. And I only buy my fish from AAC. And I do blah, 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 blah. So there's all these nonsensical stuff that's going on, you know. But the reality is the eDNA test will frighten the piss out of everyone.
But ultimately, Paul, like Rob said, it's so needed because then it opens up the avenues where we need to explore more, where the people that are a lot more cleverer than me.
But sometimes ignorance is bliss too. So
I was about to say exactly that.
Sometimes I was going to not know. So, for example, like I just said, I guarantee that if we test Tom's, Ian's, my tank, your tank, we will all find the ick parasite present. I bet Rob would agree, who's in the chat. I bet Rob would say that. And you know, Rob's done something really clever, because there's no getting away from it. Rob's fish are absolutely superb, right?
Yeah.
But Rob would agree with me that he's done this tank transfer method that's worked really well for Rob, right? And that's worked well for him, yeah? And having his scientific background as well, it gives him an upper hand on a lot of people out there, yeah? However, I think Rob would also agree with me that he hasn't always quarantined every coral, and he hasn't always quarantined every snail. Yeah, so I can imagine that Rob shits himself every time he has to buy a cleanup crew, or every time he has to buy, because I know another well-known reefer who's superb that Ian will know, and no doubt Tom, you know, which is
Thank you.
No, sorry, mate.
Tony
D&D. What a masterclass fish keeper. Tony D&D is one of the best fish keepers in this country, right? And he said to me that he quarantined all his fish, putting them in the display, and then he was asking me for snails, and I said, well, what are you going to do with them then? Right? He said, well, no. So this is a way of at least lowering the problem. I'll call it the 3-bucket method. So if you go shopping at your LFS for cleanup crew or snails or mushroom rocks or whatever it is, at least when you unpack them in the transport water, or whatever, the snails, you know, toothbrush in the transport water, every shell, move it into clean water, rinse them off again, move them into other water. It's still better than doing nothing and just opening a bag of snails and throwing them in. So the reality is I don't believe there's a single system in the whole of the UK that won't have. He does quarantine snails. There you go. So
I'll tell you another thing, right? I don't. And if you're in this hobby because it absolutely grabs you by the carrot and onions, right? And you proper love it, I can't just accept that I don't know what might have happened to those fish, what was in there, right? So what it done is push me to fucking pick this up.
Yeah.
Right? And then all of a sudden, and listen, the truth is, me and Tom fucking bumped into Paul and Flange outside AAC, and he said about this woman, and I was like, I'm sure we just met her.
Mate.
And then Googled her and said she'd written it. So I went back there, and luckily enough, this was there. And I thought, do you know what? It's just another avenue. Listen, I've got a full-time job. I've fucking got this going on outside of work, right? But at some point, I will read the whole of this over and over again. I've got fucking Helicopter Rob one as well, right?
I've got to get myself one. I went to go and
you can have this after I
wouldn't mind a little flick through it and just.
That's all right. I'll bring it in next time, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I want to learn. I'm not happy to just go, yeah, they just kicked the bucket, mate. Fuck knows what happened.
No,
Do you know
that's
what I
right.
mean? Like,
Well, talking about learning, we are past the hour mark. I think we need to learn a little bit more about what Paul would rather do. So, Drippy, it's your game. Do you mind reminding everybody that's watching, especially Paul, the rules, please,
Yes.
while I get the banners up?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, good morning. Good morning, the World Wide Web. So, Paul Hughes of Advanced Aquarium Consultancy, been in the trade 149 years. Please forget for a second that you own a shop and you have very good relations with lots of influential people. Yes, suppliers, yes. So, here comes a set of questions. You have to give an honest answer. Unfortunately, you have to answer reefing related. But you have to answer, I would rather eat my own teeth than, and then obviously give your extremely honest, unbiased answer, sir.
No.
So this is lovely. This is
ready.
I feel like for once I'm on the other end of the fence, fucking letting him have it.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
First one for you.
Next under pressure.
Here we go, Mr. Hughes.
I would rather eat my own teeth than use a refugium.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's a very controversial one.
Yeah.
Any reason why?
You've tried it in the past, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but first of all, I still disbelieve this idea that macroalgae should be anywhere present near a coral reef. That's what engulfs them. That's what takes over them. So there's the primary production perspective. That's the biological answer. Okay. But then the reality is in a reef aquarium is why do I want something out competing? And I mean, I love macroalgae. I love macroalgae. But why do I want...
You actually said that's the one thing you'd bring back from Reeferpalooza if you fucking could.
Absolutely, yeah. So the reason being is that why do I want something which is more rapidly consuming micro elements just to use more product to add back those micro elements into that reef tank? So, for example, I've done some experiments on it. I had a well-known brand style sump set up once on a customer's tank. Live rock. And I was planting all my old school corals in it and they were all dying. And I was thinking, what the hell is going on here? But the strawberry shortcake, which was a wild piece, was growing like nuts. And I was thinking, what's the correlation here? You know, why are my hardy corals dying, but the one that should have died hasn't and is doing well? And when I got to the bottom of it, it's because those reef crest strawberry shortcakes that live in the most pristine and devoid of everything waters that are hanging on to dear life like a wild antelope, on the Serengeti, right, were surviving because they were used to this situation. Right. Whereas all my old school corals that have been used to a heavy nutrient load, and also heavy nutrient load, and also a plethora of micro elements that they'd all grown used to, like iodine, for example, which being the main one, So one day I had enough. I ripped out all of the macroalgae, which was tons of it, ripped it all out, and then I filled it, just put some biomedia, some live rocks in it, and those corals went off and grew no problem at all. That's my answer. I actually think that a refuge. Now, where is a benefit to a refugium? It's a space for nature, like a patch of stinging nettles in the back of your garden. So it's a good place to settle a mandarin or a pipefish or copper band or something like that. So there's a reason for using a refugium, but it ain't the reasons that people think. I think that people need to stop talking bollocks about the idea that a refugium's going to solve your issues in your reef aquarium, because it don't. It just adds to them. And it's also a place to grow Actasia and all sorts of other nuisances as well.
Okay. Next question. Thank you.
I think you explained that quite well.
Yes.
Okay. Next one.
Oh.
Now you can't use GHL.
No. Look, I like GHL. Just the customer service let that down. So it's got nothing to do with the quality of the gear.
I want you to be brutally honest, Paul.
Well saved.
I really need to think about it. I'm not prepared for that. I'd rather eat my own teeth than buy.
To be brutally honest.
You can't say refugium.
Yeah. Cheeto, ketomorpha.
Take your time.
It's really difficult, that one, really. I really don't know what I would say to that, quite honestly. I would be brutally honest. I'm not joking. If I think something's not right, I'll tell you what I'm going to say, right? I've actually just bought one.
Oh.
I'd rather eat my own teeth than buy a rimless bleeding tank.
That's a fair point, mate. Because this
I hate
spinning on
rimless tanks.
That's the only reason I put braces on mine.
The reason why I hate rimless tanks, really, even I've got a rimless tank here, I've got rimless tanks, and I've just ordered one as well. So there you go. I'm still buying it, but the reason why I would is because there is no other options for you out there as reefers, for starters. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, for example, I believe that, you know, the idea or concept of a rimless aquarium is great if you haven't got to put a bloody jump guard on it. Everybody else, you know, sort of wants to put RAS and things like that on in their systems, and invariably they end up buying a jump guard, yeah, and putting it on their tank, and then it sort of destroys the beauty of what that rimless tank design was for. Yeah, so the idea should be minimalistic. You don't want to see covers and things on them. So I am actually setting up another rimless tank at home, but the difference will be is that is not something. Yeah, and so I'm going to be doing some different things with it, and there's no pressure. But there's another reason as well. So structurally, rimless aquariums are nowhere near as good as a braced aquarium structurally.
Oh yeah, of course.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and also so glass. Well, it's not trippy. It's like so convertible cars too. So convertible cars are not as structurally as good as a normal car.
They're only for women, though, aren't they?
The shoebox movement on a car. So BMWs, they invested so much money to make. So it's the same. It's an answer.
Yeah,
it's the same principle. I wish that you all had much more choice out there with lidded designs. We don't all need to have suspended lighting. We could have internal lighting for a soft coral aquarium with a lid on it, which means the fish are not jumping out the bleeding tank.
I think it's the same with bald men and men with hair as well, with what you're explaining.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So there you go. I wish there was more choice for all.
Okay. Thanks for that one. Here we
go.
Well
done, Mr. Hughes. Well done. Oh, can't say GHL.
I would rather eat my own teeth than sell.
Oh.
This, sorry to go in. Isn't this question, Drippy, aimed around what he would rather, he'd rather eat his own teeth than get rid of, as in
you can't. Yeah, and you can't say flange.
Oh, I'll say
I'm not selling the shop, so not selling the shop to customers.
I reckon I've got one, but I'll see what he says. Because I know something that he loves that he would never get rid of.
There's a lot of that, Ian. That's the trouble.
It's in the shop.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on there. I'd rather eat my own teeth than sell my fish collection.
Okay.
But
is there one standout? Go on, Rodders.
I was going to say the Deltec display tank in the shop.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but at some stage here, and that's got to go. So,
cool. How many years has it been in there now?
It's coming up 10 years, I think it is. So, you know, really for a lifetime of an aquarium, really, you're taking the piss 10 years plus. I know Martin's in the chat. We was having a chat with Martin the other night. He's 20 years old, and, you know, and I've got a sea brace that go back that are 20 plus years or whatever. But the reality is that at some stage that tank's got to go. So if someone wanted to make me an offer on it, they could.
Right, listen, just quickly, I know it's getting away from the question, right? But let's just say, for example, in the next year you decide it's too much of a risk. I've got too much invested in the fish, the corals, blah blah blah. I'm going to get rid of that DD tank. You'll sell it or whatever, right? Give it away to me, whatever, right? But what would you then replace that display tank with?
Just a custom build.
What, same size, same dimensions?
Probably, yeah. I'll probably just get a new top mate and keep the cabinet and just go change it out. It's going to be really hard getting it out of the shop because it was really hard getting it in. It was 8 people, 2 trolleys, and
do you remember I had one in my shop?
What's that?
Do you remember my one I had in my shop? The same.
You had this Paul Silver, didn't you? Yeah.
Lovely tank, mate.
Yeah, it is lovely. But you know what? If you said to me, rather eat my own teeth than sell. In with regards to the fish collection, it would have to be my black tang, because the black tang was given to me.
Quite sentimental, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the black tang was in a will. That was given to me in so many words in a will.
How great is that, by the way?
Yeah.
How fucking great is that?
Yeah. Well, that all goes back to when I was I don't know, 20 something years old, and a new customer had come in and he really wanted a black tang, but he told me never to tell his wife how much it was. It was 400 quid back then. It was about this big. And he said he said to me at the time, like, I had a good relationship with him, and he used to mentor me as well in business a little bit as well. And he said to me, he said, you're such a robbing bastard, you are. 400 quid for a little black fish this big, yeah. Anyway, it turns out so he had this fish. It's now 22 or 23 years old, the fish.
Wow.
When I actually did go to his funeral and all of that, I was looking back on the fish. He said at the time that I'd robbed him. That's what he said, right? Jokingly. Anyway, it turns out I did rob him, because it isn't a pure black tang. It's a black tang Scopaz hybrid, which were always cheaper than a black tang. So technically, I did rob him, and I told his wife this at the funeral
and gave her money back,
which we had a little laugh about. But that's why I bought the Deltec tank. So I promised Greg before he passed away, because he mentioned that I'll be having the tang and that. I promised Greg, and I promised his wife that I was going to buy the best house I could find for that fish. And that's why I ended up with the ridiculous £60,000 AAC display because of that black tang. So that would be the fish.
Nice story.
Nice
yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Right, moving on then. Next one. Ooh.
Oh, do you know what? I've even got a juicy one. So that last question, I'd rather eat my own teeth than sell. Any products that's been released that you would never ever let into the store of AAC because you think it's utter dog shit?
Yes.
Are you going to elaborate on that, Mr. Hughes?
No. Briefly, I will say, because it does concern me, right, some of it. So there are a lot of firms out there, I'm not aiming this specifically, that jump on the bandwagon of other people's products.
Yep.
And they don't have the experience or the biolab or the quality or the this. And then you see it all. You see it launched as a new product range. And you think, oh, well, I might give that a try. And it's utter dog shit. And I've inspected some of these things, particularly around diets. That's all I'm going to say. You know, that when it comes to feeding marine fish, there's not many people that are going to know what I know when it comes to feeding them. Yeah. And what you need to be doing to keep your animals healthy. And when I see what I've seen not that long ago of a food range, it was shocking to my eyes. And I think myself, the people that have launched this product range, they obviously know nothing about feeding marine fish.
British or American?
I ain't saying. So the reality is I can't, because there's a lot of friends, there's a lot of relationships. I'll tell them direct to their face. They'll don't know, I'll tell them. But I will not tolerate. That's the thing for me is that there are products out there. I think that's why over the years, I said this on the Thursday stream I recently done. I want to remember, people forget most LFS owners are hobbyists, and we really do give a shit. It's just a shame that on Facebook groups sometimes you see like this us and them developing, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that I don't want people ever having a bad experience when they leave my business. I want them to have the best possible experience. And that comes down to the products that sit on my shelves too. Yeah. So if I think something is questionable, but it's not going to kill anything and it's not going to hurt anything and it's not going to And it might be, for example, an additive. We still don't know, despite the fact we're all slinging all micro elements in our tank. We still don't know exactly how beneficial some of these products are. And for example, I know Clayton from Reefworks, when he was studying as a biologist, one of his studies that he did was on the toxic qualities of strontium. So if you look back through coral skeletons through millennia, right, before man was on the earth, there was no strontium complex found in coral skeletons. However, today there is, so it must there's something to do, it might be due to where man started lighting fires, and things like that, who knows? But basically, since man's been on this planet, we now find strontium in coral skeletons. Now, I've seen an improvement with using slightly elevated strontium. But as Clayton found, strontium in large concentrations is quite toxic. There's so much that we don't know. So that product, I still sell it, but ultimately, it's questionable. We don't really know. We still don't even really know what complex of iodine the corals are actually using. All we know is we add iodine, it goes off and forms into other species, and so there are products that are on my shelves that we don't fully understand. But I do know that if they're used correctly, they're not going to wipe your tank out or cause an insufficiency in the animal's well-being. But if I see a product range come out and I think to myself, do you know what? That is dog shit. It won't make my shelves. Just because everyone else is selling it doesn't mean it will be at AAC. Now, if someone specifically says to me, will you get me that product? I will, because I've told you how I feel about it. But just because that's how I feel about it doesn't mean that I won't stock it. For example, it was Mick Chopping that encouraged me to stock the Stratton, right? And it was like a product range I wasn't too keen at getting in again. I thought, no, I don't know if I could be bothered with that. And, the software is not where I want it to be and what have you. But ultimately, the customers, and the evidence is I'm looking at right now, the evidence is that it's one of the best lights that's ever been released on the market. It's just that. So sometimes I'll allow customers to dictate what is on the shelves. Yeah, but if I feel that it's of detriment to the animals, then I won't.
Just quickly on software.
I'll never sell a fish unless I'm happy, and nor will the staff, to someone unless we're happy that we know what you're doing with it. So
just quickly on software. Who set up your Tunzi power heads in the farm?
I did.
You did you?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, mate! I tried to set that thing up yesterday. Fucking hell.
What, on Wave?
Fucking German software, mate. Fucking
I'm not using software on the tons. I'm just using them manually.
Oh, you use a manual. You didn't set up the hub?
No.
Quick question, mate. Do you still use the Benny Reef?
Yes.
Good stuff.
Can we keep on track and ask these at the end of this?
I mean, Ian, I'll tell you though, there's a bit about Benny Reef as well, so I'll come on to that. There's goods and there's negatives. Yeah.
Go on. I'd rather eat my own teeth and take advice from Paul.
Tom.
Yeah, fine.
Tom. No.
Rodders.
I can't really say.
You have to give an answer.
I would rather eat my own teeth and take advice from. Sounds terrible, this, but fuck it, I'll say it. I'd rather eat my own teeth and take advice from. I have to be careful. Wholesale livestock managers.
Okay.
I'm afraid we do need a name for this question.
No. There's been too many times that I'm buying animals.
Oh, great. You got me, mate. Quality.
Yeah. There's too many. Unfortunately, one of the things that I'm really upset about really is the fact that there's not enough that goes into development of staff in other businesses.
I think it comes down to money.
No, I don't think it does. It comes down to people being stuck in old ways. It comes down to passion, Tom. Well done. Unless you've got the passion for this subject and this hobby, then I feel that you shouldn't really be working in it.
Shouldn't be anywhere near it.
Yeah. You've got to love these animals. We're so lucky to even touch.
And you know what, Paul? I know you've been there and you've met him, right? That's why I fucking love Meckley, mate. Never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Absolutely, because you can see from that business alone with Chris and Amanda. So, like, I'm sure Amanda and Chris would agree with me. Chris is a bit like me. He buys and buys and buys and buys and buys and buys. And can you sell it? We don't know yet.
No,
you know,
exactly,
and that's how I am with fish and corals as well. Is that, you know, very often like, I say, how have we done at the weekend then, chaps and ladies? Oh yeah, we've done really well. And again, done this. I go, good. And then Ange will go, yeah, but you spent this pool before it, the week before, you know. So, you know, you've got to be just like you do it with hundreds of pounds. I do it with thousands of pounds every week. Yeah. And Ian, I'm sure, was probably as bad as I was. You know, a box, he gets a supplier list come in, and Ian would have had, back in the day, he would have had his supplier list, and he's looking at all the corals. He's thinking, I've only got 150 acros already. Let's buy another 50.
Yeah,
you know. So you know,
always found room for him, though. Always found room for him.
Yeah, I know. That's the funny thing. They always, actually, Ian, that's funny because they always go, "Where are we going to put it, Paul?" It's like this
you
week.
Always find room.
Yeah, we got, and we always manage to shoehorn it all in. Yeah,
mate, it's the same thing as when one of your mates has been skint for ages, but if a stag do coming up, mate, he'll find the money for it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right then, next one is.
Oh well.
I'd rather eat my own tea for the midst of the other half I paid. Right. Well,
Morning, Blanche.
Yeah. Well,
of course she will be.
I'm sort of pretty damn lucky, ain't I? Because but there was a time, right? So there was a time me and Angela were totally skint. Obviously, I've always worked in the trade, and you never ever, of course, earn any serious wages. You've got in the trade. There isn't, you know, it's junior wages, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, she is.
Oh no.
And I remember when me and Ange, we weren't very well off, and I remember putting an order in for a new tank after convincing her that it was going to be not as big as the previous tank and all of this. And when she found out how much I paid for my first real purchase, which was, so it was not the first tank I bought that wasn't second hand or custom, right, was my Deltec Micro Reef laminate. And that was before Connor was born. So that's 28 years ago. And I got it on the cheap at £1,300. It was a little Micro Reef. And that was a shit ton of money for me. I mean, me and Ange didn't have the money. And but I didn't really so much what I paid. She knew what was coming. I lied about the sizing of this tank. Right, yeah.
You probably lied about the size of something else before you met
her. I probably, yeah. So in other words, she just got over the horror of what I'd spent on this.
How small it is.
Yeah. I mean, there was arguments, there was all sorts about the money, right? But the reality is that I told her it was 4 feet long, which it was. But I didn't tell her it was way taller and way wider and all of that. So I just told one, yeah. And yeah, in the room that I put this tank in, literally all you could do was shoehorn a settee and one chair in it and a TV and this tank. And it was a foot. It was smaller than, I know your house, Ian's quite small, but it was way smaller than my front room than your front room. Yeah. But Ian's done it loads of times, way worse than me. Yeah, he's had monsters in that tiny little room. You know. Yeah, ridiculous.
Do you know what? All jokes aside, right? Anyone who's not maybe that familiar with AAC because they live so far away or whatever, or might think that because you've got to a certain level in the trade where you are, mate, Flange, just a little thing on Flange, right? I fucking love her so much, bless her heart. She's so hands-on, right? Everywhere you go, she goes, right? And she is not just a counter-waller. Do you know what I mean? She knows her shit, mate, and she's always got a fucking smile on her face. You know, I'm sure with the way you are, and
she's the brains, though, isn't she? It's peaking the brains.
You are. She's definitely the governor. Definitely the governor.
But you're so deep in the hobby, and you've got so many fucking people to speak to every day, and you go here and you go there. And she's fucking there every time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason for that, and the reason for that is that me and her had been working apart. I'm sure every couple here is watching, right? So our other halves, we go off and do our day job. They go off and do their day job. You think to yourself, you've had it. do you know what? I'm a bit now. I'm going to book myself some holiday, right, or some time off, right? So then you tell your other half, why don't we have a week away here or go and do this, right? And then you find out that, for example, Ian can't do that because he's building someone's shower. You can't do that, Tom, because you've got some recruitment thing going on or whatever like that. Yeah. So ultimately, what happens was we're always apart. And because I was at the business like so long hours all the time, and when Connor was born, for example, when I was working in Enfield, I was out the house 75 hours a week at the fish shop up there at Home Marine. Yeah, and I never saw Connor grow up, and I never saw Ange hardly at all. So it took Ange to be where we should give Flange the most credit, if you like, is the fact that she helped finance my desires, my trip into this world. So she's the one who held the solid job. Yeah, whilst I was messing about trying to do a bit of maintenance, aquarium maintenance, and growing the business, I became a house dad to Dylan at the same time, and it just worked slowly. And then as soon as we made enough money for her to be able to join, I mean, she didn't. We were worried. We was worried we was going to have arguments because we'd be working with one another and all of that. We didn't want to upset our relationship or anything like that. Yes, she did. And she always did as well, by the way. Ange has always done all of the VAT accounting and on top of her previous job as well. So she's done her, and she's really now, so when we want to say, because I'm very spontaneous. So like, for example, I'll say, so for example, when it was her birthday last year or something or whatever, I said, right, no, it was our anniversary. I went, oh yeah, by the way, tomorrow we're going to Amsterdam. And she goes, you what? And I go, yeah, well, she can now. Whereas you can't do that with your other half when they're at work and all that. So the reality is in order to give AAC the love that it needs, I need her as here with us, not to do the work that we do. Her job is completely different.
She's the live rock of AAC.
Exactly. But as I said, because we get very little time to do these things together and whatever, and at our age now, I mean, we've been together since we were 17. So,
yeah, I don't know how she's done that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't either. No. Right. But so, as I said, it's nice now spending our sort of older years together, and I would recommend it to anyone. If you ever in a situation where you've got your own business or whatever like that, and people worry about the idea of like spending all day with your other half and all the rest of it. Well, if you can't spend all day with your other half, there might be something wrong. Yeah.
And do you know what? Maybe you should commit to taking her to Marrakesh finally, live on air, Paul.
we do want to go. We do want to go. Yeah.
Oh dear.
You fucking do that. You need more than a medal, mate.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's been tough at times. I mean, like, people don't realise is that, as I said, me and Ange are not from wealthy backgrounds at all. Angie's a South London-based family girl, right near where Ian knows all the places that Flange is from. So she's from his neck of the woods, And then when I was growing up, I had nothing. I was, I often tell people that AAC started with 1,700 quid. That's what it started with. It was a bonus that I got out of Home Marine, a previous employer, and I had a bit of a dream and a vision and an old Mark II. An old Ford Focus estate and put me water barrels in it, and all the customers started bringing me the day that I left the business, and that's how it all started. You got to believe in what you want to do. But she was behind that. She initiated that process. Without her regular salary and putting up with me earning no wages, AAC would never have been what it is without her. That's the truth.
Flange Appreciation Day.
Yeah, Flange Appreciation Day has got to be definitely.
What a legend.
About. Right.
Fancy strictly, you know that, don't you?
I fancy her. I'm not going to lie.
Do you know? I heard a little story about
that. That would be just wrong, though. A drippy No,
mate. I walked in the other morning.
Yeah, I know what I heard from Dylan.
Come on,
she was bent over cleaning out the RO or the salt water tray, and I just fucking made my day. I was like, I had to give her a cuddle, mate. Honestly.
Thank you, man. From behind, I take it.
Oh yeah, okay. Thanks for that, Flange.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Okay. Moving on. Next one for you. This is actually the last one, I think. There you go.
Rather eat my own teeth than reef without circulation.
Good one.
I can reef without lights. I can reef without anything. I can't reef without flow, circulation. Yeah, okay. I can do it. I can do an MPS aquarium. I don't need lights. I can keep. Yeah. So for circulation, you can. I mean, you know that if you wanted a specific product, that would be really difficult. But when it as a general thing, I can reef without a skimmer. I can reef without a sump. I can reef without an out machine. I can reef without pretty much everything. You can never reef without circulation and flow. It's the most fundamental ingredient. You know, you don't need to be invested to have fun with a reef tank. What do you really need? Right. Yeah. So you're never going to get, so you can use, if you really wanted to, you could go down to B&Q, go and buy yourself an LED strip that you'd use in a cabinet, right? For like and you could still keep some mushroom anemones underneath that £2.99 LED strip, right? You know, so for me, it's flow. Yeah, it's there. That is the fun. I mean, you know, there are other ingredients like refractometers. You can't keep seawater without a refractometer, but you can't. For me, it's circulation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There were a couple of questions from people in the audience earlier regarding food. I know, Ian, you were going to go off and you want to talk about Benny Pets briefly. Gaz was asking, what foods should we use then? Vitalis ? And people are asking Paul's least favourite coral food and favourite coral food. Anything on those?
Right. Okay. Yeah, I could do that, I suppose. So if we could talk about my least favourite coral food for a minute, right? So
yeah.
I'd like to see more evidence on the use of phytoplankton, believe it or not.
That's
okay. And copepods. So something like, so as much as I'm a big stalwart fan of using liquid-based coral foods that are specifically engineered to feed your corals. Obviously, we support reef nutrition in the UK and things like that. But one of the things that I disbelieve to a degree is the use of Nanocropolis phytoplankton in a warm water aquarium. So we cultivate a cold water species in the UK, mostly of phytoplankton, right? As soon as that hits warm tropical water, I've got no doubt in my mind, as the UK copepod, that it dies. Now, the benefit of still adding the phytoplankton is that it will create a background nutrient level that in turn will probably feed something else, that in turn will probably feed something else. So I'm not saying don't add it. I'm just saying be more grown up about it. What corals do we know that eat phytoplankton? Well, there's not that many. Why is Jamie Craggs messing around with deep water, cold water, UK gorgonians and feeding them a minced up sort of shellfish diet, you know, like oyster feast or something like that to those gorgonians? I don't believe that there's many corals out there that feed on phytoplankton. That's my personal belief. I believe that they feed on whatever it is that they happen to catch that could be considered food. I don't believe they're too basic an animal to determine what it is that sits on that polyp. Yeah, and if live phytoplankton is live, yeah, and it's swimming around, yeah, it may be, possibly, it might be the other things that are taking up phytoplankton, and it's all part of the chain. It's fundamental in the chain in the ocean, without a doubt. But I just don't believe. I believe most corals are feeding on bacterial snot and other coral mucus and other things that are present, you know, in the water. But I think the idea of adding if we was able to go to Indonesia and collect live phyto from Indonesia and add it to our aquariums, so that phyto species will be at the same temperature, at the same salinities and things like that. Yeah, I believe that's the right way to use phyto. We don't see enough strains of warm water species or warm water copepod. Yeah, so for example, when we're adding copepods to a reef tank in our little bags, we sell loads every week, you know. So as I said, it's one of those products that won't cause any trouble. I'm happy to sell it, but I don't fully believe in the idea of adding a freezing cold copepod to a boiling hot aquarium and then thinking that is going to proliferate in our tropical environments, because it doesn't. And I carried out a little bit of an experiment on natural seawater, actually. So natural seawater was delivered to the 2 coral tables that I've set up in Unit 7 when I first built them up. The big ones with the abyss in it and the acros and all that. And it was December. It got filled with natural seawater. And for the first week, the seawater was fine. And all of a sudden, as the water warmed up, it basically bombed out and a huge, great big phosphate spike happened. Yeah, and there you go. There's the evidence. So whatever was alive in the natural seawater died 7 days later. It reached temperature and created a phosphate thing. So if we could collect natural seawater from Indonesia and use that in our reef aquariums, I'm all over it. I'll be all over it. That's if I was living in Indonesia, I wouldn't be using packets of salt. I'll be using natural seawater. But as I said, I think they understand. So that my least favourite coral foods are coral foods that we don't know enough about. That's the reality of it. But I think coral animals are that basic that really whatever lands on that polyp, if there's a chance for it to ingest it and it works, great. But we don't really know enough about the engineering side. And what was the other question, Tom?
The flip side of that was your favourite coral food.
You know, I'm not going to go for it. I said to myself today, I don't want to cock off about any one particular brand at all, right? Okay. But overall, the reason why I fell in love with, so it wasn't, you know, there are better margin products for me to sell on my shelves than Reef Nutrition would be as a retailer, and there will be for the retailers that buy those products from me and Ange as well. There's better products out there in terms of margin and making money. But I love Reef Nutrition because I know what goes into it. I know how much effort goes into it. I know what they've got behind the scenes. You know, it's a football stadium of phytoplankton. You know, these people are mad. They only specialise in food. They don't want to bring out lights and calcium reactors and pumps and add to their ranges just to increase the number of SKUs on their shelves. They are dedicated at bringing up food. So my favourite food would always be Reef Nutrition. But going on to what Ian first introduced me to Benny Pets. Ian's been pissing around with Benny Pets before anyone in the UK had it. And he said to me ages ago about you should try Benny Pets. And I have to say, what a clever product. But there are some, I will tell you that there is with every product. There will be with Reef Nutrition. There will be with everything that we use in our reef tanks. There will be pluses and minuses for it. You're never just going to have all of the pluses. So with Benny Pets, what's absolutely amazing to me is the fact you can have a dried product that's got bacterial strains in it that you add to a jug of water, and within 15 to 20 minutes it's activating. You add it to your reef tank and it not only feeds your corals but it also reduces your phosphate. And this all comes around because of the understanding of earthworms, which was just unbelievable. The guy that developed the story, but he was working in the composting worm industry in America, and every day he would take a handful of worms for his green terror cichlids, freshwater cichlids, in his house, and he'd throw them in his dirty tank that was full of algae, and all of a sudden he noticed that the algae was diminishing, and he couldn't understand it. And then I believe it was Jeremy Olsen and a few others, they started studying it, and no doubt it's got something to do with this purple non-sulfur bacteria and other bacteria that are present. But Benny Pets is a really clever product, without a doubt, because you can feed your corals without impacting your water quality. However, Ian, there was a study carried out on some of these deep water gorgonians that Jamie had been spawning, and we found that it wasn't as good as perhaps some of the other products for that. So again, it depends on the species of coral as to how these food products are avoided. So, for example, for me, Benny Pets is really dedicated to the guy that's really into SPS corals that wants to keep low nutrient. Right, yeah.
We had Dong Zhao on though about a month ago, and he swore blind it was it aggravated or it was an accelerator for cyano. He was dead against it. benny
Well,
pet.
yeah, the reason again. So yeah, exactly that. I would agree that he's right. I'm not arguing with that comment, because if you are pissing around with nutrient levels in a food, yeah, exactly. So Ben's just said it there. Right, if you are messing around with benny pets and you've already got low nutrient in your reef tank, you're asking for trouble. So when I make
to do with the Redfield ratio, no?
Yeah, it could be to do with that. So when I make up a soup at work, right, for which the boys and the girls will tell you I'm a mentalist when I make my soups up for work. So I will literally make 2-3 litres of food up to a day. And in there, I would put in there a few scoops of reefroids, right, which is super rich in phosphate, right? Yeah. But it's got a nice particle size, particularly for MPS corals and gorgonians. Then I'll put a few scoops of benny pets on top of it to de-accelerate the phosphate production. Then I'll mix in some oyster. Then I'll put some phytofeast in it. And that's all. Then I'll make up a soup. So I try and cover all particle sizes. Now, the phytofeast is a dead phytoplankton, right? So, and it's got 5 species, which means it should have 5 different cell sizes in it. So even if I'm saying that I don't believe a lot of corals directly take up phytoplankton, chances are they don't directly take up benny pets on a reef, or don't directly take up a North Sea collected red plankton, which is what reefroids is, yeah? So in other words, all I'm doing is trying to cover all those particle sizes. But I do believe that feeding corals is an important thing, because it often makes up for shortfalls in light, or it will make up with incorrect consistencies with chemistry or light. So it's a bit like, if we say, for example, you sling us in the Sahara Desert, but I've got plenty of water, I'm going to make it. Yeah. I'm not in the ideal environment, but I've got water. Now, if you take the water away, I'm buggered, right? But ultimately, so when I'm sort of feeding a reef tank, I try and cover all bases. But I think in the next few years, 5-10 years, we're going to see more and more coral food based around bacteria rather than particulate, which is the way we've been looking at it for a very long time.
Interesting. Gaz was asking on the theme of benny pets. He's asking, so use benny pets if your nutrients are at a minimum of.
Well, like if you've got a reef tank and you're struggling to maintain phosphate levels, whatever you do, don't use benny pets. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
If you've got chronic, say you're hovering about the sort of, not chronic anymore by today's standards, but say you're 0.08 or above, or 0.07 or above, you've probably got a bit of leg room. You can use a bit of benny pets once a week, and it might regulate another fish. Might regulate your nutrient complex. It
does also feed microbiome as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, but then anything, Ian, will do that. So in the new systems down in the farm, I've actually just been keeping all the juice from feeding the silsies from the mysis that I use, and I've been using that as a coral food lately. So I use RO water to dissolve the mysis for the seahorses, but then I only pick the block out once it starts to defrost and keep the juice. And that, honestly, even the
gravy.
Yeah, it's basically like a gravy. Mysis gravy is what I've been using on my current SPS system, because it's been suffering with low nutrient. Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't use benny pets in a situation like that.
Interesting.
Right, okay. Anything else, gentlemen, for Paul, while I've got him on? No,
I don't think so. I mean, I'd quite happily, for the last 7 minutes, if Rodders wants to start taking his scape apart live on air,
mate, I'll do it. I'm not even.
I'll just picture you later on this afternoon, mate.
The madness of it is, Paul will tell you, I am not joking, mate. I'll gladly do it.
I swear, I ain't joking. Now you've said that, Drippy, I guarantee you'll see a Facebook post later on and it won't be there anymore.
And he
probably would have destroyed it all, and restocked it all, built it all, and it'll have fish swimming around in it and corals growing out of it in about a week now.
Have you got the rock at your house ready, or were you then going somewhere to get it?
No, straight to Vince's around the corner.
Down the road, but it's there.
Yeah.
Are you getting it today?
I could do.
I think it's more an issue because he knows it's there, and he can get it that he wants it. Bit like
Yeah,
a coral in a shop.
now.
Honestly, that is all you need with Ian. All you need is to sow a seed with Ian.
It's done, mate.
That's it. It's done.
So
The stuff that this boy has done, the stuff I've seen him do.
I guarantee you by tomorrow night, that's out. Done. Gone.
Yeah. Honestly, I have seen Ian destroy stuff and rebuild it in a week.
I think he's raised his lights especially for it. Look, is it me or have you raised your lights?
Yeah,
Too strong, mate. Too strong.
He's got more. He's got more pairs of orange glasses than he has corals.
Hey, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, funny you should say that, Tom. Because Ian is the JAFFA glasses robber.
Well, does he walk? Well, I was about to say, does he walk out all the time with them on his head?
He reckons he don't. He reckons he don't. But they're all Fritz glasses from my shop that he's been nicking over time. Yeah, he claims that he hasn't, right? But there was a photograph once where there was 10 pairs all around the top of his tank, and I thought I've seen him a lot lately. Yeah, and then I'll go to get a pair of glasses in the shop. There ain't any left.
I never took his glasses.
He always gets out with that.
Don't listen to him.
Yeah, watch out. Any LFSs out there, watch out for Rodders because he'll have your orange glasses.
This one's got AAC and Biro.
Yeah, I bet it has. Yeah.
There's a couple more questions in the comments before we wrap up. We're getting close to the 2-hour mark. So back on to Sayano briefly. EIY Kuma, hope you're good, buddy. He's asking your favourite method to remove cyano. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll let you answer.
Well, I mean, obviously, first of all, always just double check that your nutrient levels are where they're meant to be. If you've still got cyanobacteria at that point, I am going to big a product up actually, but I'm going to say
I'll back it
BioClear.
Yeah,
BioClear. Which used to be called CyanoClear, but they've had to relabel it. Modern Reefs BioClear. Don't ask me why or what it is, but for me, that product is, and I've just recommended it to Jamie at Reef and Teeth, Jamie, and he's already had a result. It's way better than using an antibiotic, because we're obviously not destroying the biome in another way, So I think that using God knows what's in it. It smells like a vinegary, alcohol-y typey substance, but and I actually recommend it to the person who distributes it, which is Foxy, who's in the chat. Like, he had some problems with cyano. I said, well, have you used your product that you distribute? Modern? No. I said, well, give it a go. And so it's one of, I've seen loads of products over the years, and and you think to yourself, is it questionable? You know what I mean? But that is one product. I mean, how did you took some, Tom, didn't you?
Yeah, I was. If you remember, I'd used it twice, and I didn't have. I don't think the bottle you sell, was kind of big enough for my volume of water for the DT downstairs. I think I needed slightly more. So when I put in sort of a bottle and a half, problem gone.
Yeah.
No negative effects.
What?
No negative effects.
No negative effects. No.
I was worried because I'm at work. Obviously, when I want it, because it says about putting it in there when the lights go out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, of course, at work, I'm not going to be around to see what happens to my fish or my. You should always, whenever you playing with products like that, always have a standby water change.
Do you have to turn your skimmer off?
Yeah. Well, no, I take the cup off of mine and allow it to overfoam. Yeah. So I don't reduce the aeration. Where you should always be careful.
Same with the Flux RX.
Yeah.
You know what? That's a great bit of advice because that's what I always do. That's a brilliant bit of advice, Paul.
Yeah. Never ever
reading can just go through the
So of course, so what we did was in the shop we turned the lights off on a soft coral system that we had that was suffering, and we just had it basically at that level, and we did it in store, so you don't have to do it overnight. What worries me is people adding these products just before they go to bed and then waking up in the morning all their fish are dead on the bottom, which I know is happening with things like you have to be careful with carbon dosing and all sorts of things. But for me, if you're going to experiment with a new product, if it tells you to turn your lights off, do it in the daytime when you're going to be there. Turn the lights off. Have a day off of lighting. Your corals will thank you for it, or you'll probably anyway, because out on the reef, they're not exposed to full sunshine every single day. You see, that's the other thing that's a bit of a myth. They're very often you can have like very cloudy 3-month periods in Indonesia, and overcast, and the Caribbean's overcast a lot of the time. So you know, turn your lights off and don't worry about it, but do it daytime so you can monitor your fish so that you're ready to do water changes if something ever goes wrong.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer. Thanks for that. And the last one, I know Gazza's adamant to keep asking about this. Where are you, Gazza? Flame Angel. So you'll know I've got one behind me. Where is she? There. So Gazza's asking, is it it's pot luck if it eats a coral or not? In your opinion, what is the ratio that they are reef safe?
Right, there's not a single flame angel on the planet that is reef safe. Don't matter how many times one's all right, it don't do anything. Well, guess what? One day it will. So, exactly. For example, yeah, and Grippy can confirm that. So, for example, so basically, what I'm going to say is that it's entirely possible to have that stunning angelfish and SPS combo.
Funnily enough, look, that's the Julian Sprung book that I've been reading the last couple of days as well. Fucking brilliant it is.
So basically, you can do this angelfish SPS tank, but what you've got to remember, so there's not someone who's not in the chat or not that often on these things, but I know he watches them back. Ian will know. I mean, Jack the Hat.
Yeah.
Right now, Jack the Hat had one of the best tanks on Ultimate Reef you've ever seen. Right, and he had what I call old school SPS, so a lot of big Hystrix colonies, a lot of big Stylophora, a lot of big Monty colonies, and all of that. And he had big blue face angels and emperor angels and all the rest of it. And they didn't touch any of those corals at all. Right. So, but it's what corals? So for example, if it had just dropped a cataphilia on the substrate that day, it would have eaten it. And I've watched cataphilia get eaten. Yeah. Majestic angels love cataphilia and regal. Yeah. So with a flame angel, I find with the Centropyge group, with the dwarf angels, they're more prone to picking on SPS corals than actually some of the major angels are. But for example, if I had a flame angel amongst Hystrix, Montipora digitata, and acros and things, I'd be less concerned than I would be if I had a fungia, blastomussa. So it's the type of corals. These angelfish can't help. It's in their psyche. Like a pigeon when it walks along, or a crow, it has to peck off the floor. Every footstep has to peck like a chicken. Dwarf angels are programmed to literally nip at everything that they come across. They mouth everything. So they might. So if they only mouth a fungia once or a trachophilia once, that little bite is enough to cause a hole, which then means that coral will remain closed and subject to secondary bacterial infection or other problems. So that coral's compromised now. You don't get any chances. So things like fungia, trachophilia, acanthophilia, those corals around dwarf angels, you're asking for trouble.
Another thing I noticed. Now, I will sit there and watch my tank for hours. So when I had all the angelfish, one thing I noticed, and this is just my own experience, from it, angelfish are by far the most curious fish I have ever owned. There is no fish I've ever owned, wrasse, tangs, fucking damsels.
Inquisitive.
No fish has come close.
There's a level of intelligence,
angelfish
right? So as much as we talk about fish intelligence, right? So there's different fish. Without a doubt, there are fish with more brains than other fish.
100%.
Right? And angelfish are territorial. Any animal that's territorial, basically staking a claim to that bit, already has a level of intelligence that surpasses something like a trevally. A trevally is geared as a hunting predator, a swallower. So it wants to do. It wants to cruise the world's oceans, looking for bait, looking for food. Yeah, as it's driven by food. Whereas when something's territorial and claiming its space, it's already got a different level of intelligence. And then the truth is that damselfish actually hold probably some of a bit like cichlids, African cichlids, which are secondary marine fish, for example, care about raising their eggs, fry and young. That makes them way more intelligent than a fish that cast their like a cod, just cast their eggs and sperm into the oceanic currents, and Bob's your uncle. That's it. It's over with. Same as tangs do. Yeah. So so there are certain. So now things like a flame angel or an angelfish, where it don't matter what it is that you put in a tank, whether it's a rock or whatever, as soon as you put it, they're so inquisitive, but they have to like use their mouth instead of hands. They use their mouth. They're on anything new, so they're always focused on, which is why so many hobbyists have had a tank for ages. They make a claim. Well, my flame angel's all right because they've had quite a rough coral experience, probably, right? And then they go down the LFS, they buy a funky, throw it in a tank, and it eats it straight away. So that's down to a level of inquisitive nature and mouthing things. They just can't help but mouth everything.
I'd also say how often you feed the tank as well, because naturally, if you're going to starve the tank, then they're going to look for food, aren't they?
Absolutely,
they're going to do that regardless, mate. They are fucking pecking.
Yeah, so captive, you know, like captive bred regal angels, we're seeing captive bred venusta and all of that. As Drippy will confirm, even though they've been captive bred and reared on TDO as a diet, doesn't stop them from doing their natural behaviour, which is to mouth corals. They just can't help it, even if they're not eating them. They're still sort of, oh, there, what's that? Oh, nip. Oh, what's that? Oh, nip. You know what I mean? And that's what they're like, you know. Yeah. So for me, there isn't the only angelfish that I would say that is worth consideration without not wrong, mate. Genia campfish, just the swallowtail angelfish family is probably the safest to play with.
Now, if talking of things like that, right, if you observe your fish and it's not just I'll do that and then walk away from it, do that, wonderful things happen, right? The other day, I caught my yellowtail tamarin wrasse acting like a cleaner wrasse to my Tamini tang. And I thought, fuck me, there was a snapshot of nature there, right, that I've never ever heard anyone mention that ever before. And there in my tank, from nothing more than taking the time to sit and observe it, I'm finding a tamarin wrasse cleaning a Tamini tang.
There are loads more cleaners in hobbyist tanks in this country that are cleaners on the reef. Blue stripe pipefish are cleaners on the reef. Jan's flame pipefish are cleaners on the reef. Any angelfish showing its juvenile colours of blue and white is a cleaner on the coral reef. Yeah, so a lot of angelfish initially with that predatory, that territorial thing. So if you've got an adult emperor, right? There you go, central pie collector, dolphins clean each other. But there are lots of juveniles. So the blue and white markings mean, please don't beat me up because I'm not sexually dominant yet. And I'm also a cleaner. That's why angelfish throw those blue and white patterns on the bigger groups of angels as their babies and juveniles. And that's found circumtropical, remember. So in West Africa, the African angel is a blue and white colour. We go all the way over to the Caribbean and we find blue and white juveniles of other angels there, and blue and white juveniles all the way over into Indonesia. Blue and white often means I'm a cleaner, or red and white will, of course, as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a question here regarding that. Angels, Centropagi collector. What coral would you say I would have more success with if I want to have a mixed reef? 23 dwarf angels. Wow.
Superb. I'd like to. I tell you what, whoever this is, I would love to see an image of this. I'd love to see a bit of film. I don't know if he can put up a link if he's got an Instagram thing. I'd love to see that. Right, so 23 dwarf angels. Wow, that's like keeping them like African cichlids again. We go. So the way to do it, if you're going to do a collection of angelfish, really, you really need to introduce a lot of simultaneous introduction. You've got to go 3 at a time at least, or 5 at a time, or whatever, because the territory and the war would be enormous. So what I suspect this gentleman's done, or lady's done, is that he's going to have it should be spectacular, this display. But when we get to his question, what corals would I put there? As mixed reef, ones you don't care about. So personally, so basically, if I wanted to replicate that display, I would have said that you should experiment possibly with some euphilia, like some hardy euphilia. So lemon pill angels are an absolute arse for nipping corals, as are bicolour angels. Bicolours. Yeah. I shook my head, I have to say, when I was watching Steve. Like, I was thinking, what on earth is he doing? What advice has he been giving there? Because a bicolour angel is the worst angelfish of them all. I didn't realise
he'd done that. As soon as I'd seen he'd done that, I was like, oh my God, mate, there are some angelfish that So lemon pills are a bit like bicolours, and what but we done, me and Ren actually, a member of staff, experimented
with a lemon peel, and he found that lemon peel wouldn't touch Euphyllia divisa, paradivisa, the branching frog spawn, and it seemed to leave alone the old AAC hammer as well. I'm not suggesting, I mean, this is what there is definitely, because the angelfish families we've just discussed is a little bit more intelligent than others. You can get all flame angels are going to eat your corals. All lemon peels will eat corals. They all eat corals. There's not one that don't. Just because you got one today that isn't doesn't mean it won't at some stage. So, yeah, anyway, I lost my track there. Anyway,
I found that my angels left glabrescens alone.
Yeah.
But hammers, frog spawns, cats, it was, but the torches absolutely fine.
I definitely wouldn't put I definitely wouldn't put any fish, corals in like blastomer, anything defenseless. I wouldn't put it in. I would experiment with things like Galaxia if I was.
You know what I was about to say? What about Galaxia? Because they're aggressive as anything.
Yeah, they're aggressive. They grow fast, and they're thorny. So if you think about it, a coral skeleton isn't thorny to make it look pretty. It's there to obviously all those acroporids, those cups, those where the corallites go. They're designed to stop a butterfly fish or an angelfish from eating them. So ultimately, I would say that if I was doing a mixed reef, I would probably try and stick more towards thorny or not to it. And also, the one coral I would say that works really well often with angelfish is coral morphs. So things like Rhycordia florida and Rhycordia and mushroom anemones generally are pretty safe when it comes with angels because of all that slime that they throw off. They don't like that.
I would also suggest that going back to what you said about bird's nest and things like that, where it's so thickly dense in the middle of that colony, where it will grow. The outer, it might have the odd peck at the outer branches, but because it won't be able to get anywhere near the middle because of how densely compacted it is, you'll probably have a much more fairer chance of that colony surviving.
I mean, that's a really good coral, Drippy, to discuss Ceratopora hystrix or Caliendrum or any of those, because they wouldn't be that shape unless it was for a reason. A lot of people look, one of the things is to try and always reconnect with nature. And by that, what I mean is that why is this animal that shape? And why does it want to be that way? Yeah. Now, we know that acroporids, for example, can be on the reef crest and they're that shape because of the hydrodynamics of the waves and density. But when a piece of the acro falls off to the 25 meters below, it doesn't die. It just grows in a new format, in a new branching shape, according to flow and current. But the reality is the actual polyp itself, not the colony, is specifically designed to not be predated on if it can help it. So try and think like that when you're trying to do a mixed reef tank. And say you want that angel fish display or butterfly fish display, don't spend loads of money on corals. Experiment with, but there is a problem. Look, nowadays, we're all so used to buying frags. So when we plant one frag of an acro in a tank where there's angels, that is never going to do well. If we had colonies of acros first, like Jack the Hat had, big colonies like size, and then you put in an angel, that coral's got way more chance of survival than you put in a little thing. So, as I said, it's one of those things. I think that for me, the greatest reef tank. I mean, I love Tanny Hoff's tank with his Levatus butterfly, and I love watching Andrew Sadler experiment with all these butterfly species and things like that. Someone's got to do it. Yeah, but as you found, Drippy, like eventually, which you was doing it, you was on that, bollocks, I'm going to do it. That's what you said, I'm going to do it. And you have to go in it with that mindset of
I will go back to it. I will at some point go back.
You just never had the experience of enjoying corals. That was your problem. I think that someone who's been a stalwart would say Tom, for example, or Ian, someone who's been in it for a long time, you've had all the corals in the world and I've done that and I've seen they've done it. You think, what can I do next? And for me at the moment, I'm messing about with, I'm getting into macroalgae at the moment. And looking at new things that I'm thinking about in the future, or new displays and new ways. And that's a part of the fun of the hobby. Most of us at the moment, what we do is just recreate hanging baskets of corals, right? Yeah, they're not the freshwater world is so much more grown up than our saltwater world. We don't see nowhere near enough biotopes or things like that. But imagine setting up a butterfly fish and angelfish aquarium and literally like just doing one species of stony coral in it, Ceratoporistrix, burn the shit out of them, make them go pink. What a backdrop to your angelfish collection. Why do we have to have every loads of corals in a tank? What is the reason for us that it's just man's insatiable appetite for trying to cram as much in as we can? But Ian, do you remember Barry Gatts?
Yeah, of course.
Right, so Barry's last tank that he wanted to pull off, and he's still not. I still see him. He's not in the hobby.
Off of him, you know, quite good.
Right. He's a nice fella. But imagine your tank behind you, Ian. He had a tank your size, Ian, and he wanted to just do barley slimer, solitary species.
I remember.
And he wanted 15 convict tang and just barley slimer.
I remember, yeah.
Imagine the effect that tank have. Yeah. So sometimes I think that we're going to see more as time goes on, and as we get better and better at this subject, like the freshwater game, we're going to start to see a lot more different displays. As some of us some people have been in the hobby for a long time, you'll get bored with this, Tom, and Ian will get bored with that, and I'll get bored with that, and you're always looking for that next display. You know, and I think for me now it's about less is more. For personally, in the shop, it's got to look like an hanging basket. It's got to cover all bases. But if you gave me my chart, the staff take the piss. They said if you let Paul start it, the fish would be brown and the corals would be brown. And it's true when you go bird spotting for the first time, you're looking for eagles. When you've been a bird spotter,
I wondered what you want about bird spotting. Sorry.
Yeah, when you've been an ornithologist, I mean. When you've been bird spotting for a long time, you don't look for eagles anymore. You're looking for little brown warblers. There you go.
What you're explaining there is one of the reasons why I love this hobby, because something will spark your interest, right? And you follow it, and all of a sudden you go down an avenue you never thought you'd go down. And at the bottom of that avenue is 3 other avenues that come off of that one that might enhance that avenue you've just walked down. And before you know it, you're going, how the fuck have I got here? Do you know what I mean?
Old school reef keepers are not snobby about coral species, right? New school reef keepers are snobby when it comes to corals often. Right? Oh, I'm only doing SPS. I'm only doing this. They can't see the love in the soft coral anymore because they think that's beginner. They think there's for me, the animals, if you put them in the right display, every single animal has its right, if you know what I mean, its own beauty. And it could well be that someone's watching this morning is a relatively newbie that's just got a few soft corals. Well, trust me, when you've been in it a long time, you can see the beauty in any animal you ever keep.
Funny you've just said that, because you'll see behind me that there's acros, and obviously but yesterday I was in your shop and I bought a polyfilter. And
sorry, I missed that. Say again.
I bought a polyfilter out your shop, right, because I need new. But as I turned around chatting away to whoever it was, I caught a toadstool in a lovely form, probably about fist size, in your tank next to your the Red Sea 4 foot with the soft tank. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm having that. It was just it's got a lovely movement. And I wouldn't have done that, I don't think, 2 months ago.
No, I think it's important to, as I said, so the problem is again, we create mixed reef aquariums, and there are some downsides for trying to mix soft corals in with stony corals. There can be, right? But the reality is, long term, for me, if I was going to do sort of an SPS tank, it would be SPS and SPS only, and it would be bare bottom. It would be much higher velocity flow, and you get a much better effect. And I probably wouldn't plant it out with more than 3 or 4 species and allow those colonies to grow big, like, you know, and all the rest of it. And I think you get more beauty. Less is more, is what I keep saying.
Yeah, it's easier said than done.
Yeah, you get 1,000. We all want every acro. Like, you can't help yourself. I'm the same, Tom. I'm still the same. I'm still an addict. As well. But holding off, when it's like learning to paint, really, it's holding off all the colours,
But that's learning. That's experience.
It is.
Yeah.
We've got an answer on the angel conversation we're having. I'm just conscious of time as well. We're well over the 2-hour mark, so I'll wrap it up after we've just covered this. Yes, I do 3 angels at a time. Also suspect that the new fish going in will have that new fish smell, so I put them in a homemade acclimatizing device, and I only feed the tank from the acclimatizing device.
I also learned from Mr. Hughes, and I don't know if it was it told him, that if you're going to buy a new frag, once you get it home and dip it, and the mucus and the slime coat is very much there, leave it in the sump for a couple of days before adding it to the reef.
Absolutely.
Fish.
100%.
And that possibly will lean their attention away from it when it does inevitably go in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Really good point. Yeah. I as much as it's nice and MPS aquarium, that is hard work.
Yeah. Okay. Right, I'm going to wrap us up there, gentlemen. Paul, thank you ever so much for giving up just over 2 hours. No, you're welcome back anytime, mate. Anytime. Ian, thanks for staying awake. I know you struggled a little bit towards the end there.
Struggle, mate. I've got work emails coming through. That's all.
He's not tired. He's just itching to get that rock out his tank.
Mate,
Yeah, he's not even put the lights on today either.
all I'm saying is, listen. No, they don't come on till 1. All I'm saying is, watch my Instagram in the next 2 days.
I guarantee that tank will be done by next weekend. I guarantee it.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah,
easy.
Oh, thanks everybody at home for watching. Anyway, hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. What's left of it. Drip, love you, brother. See you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you very much. And
See you
Paul,
soon, chat.
big shout out to you and Flange and the team AAC. Thanks for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend. What's left?
Bye bye.